All sports, all the time.
Tell me about it.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
And with freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports, because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to The Spoken.
This is the Spoken Podcast. I am your host, Lance Twidwell. Here inside the Spoken Studios with my guys, Trevor Twidwell and Eddie Ortiz. Episode 153 in full swing, full motion. We are so happy to be here with you guys with live streaming YouTube, your podcasting. We want to thank you for your time being with us this weekend as we have just one more game to go in the NFL season. I can't believe that it's already flown by this quickly. That's usually how the NFL season goes. I thought, though, the extended season with an extra game would give us a little bit more of that, but it felt like it flew by just as if it was a 16-game schedule. But we are so happy to have you guys. We have a lot to get to. We have the Eddie Hour again because our guy, Mr. Yo, is back this week. He had himself a nice little trip in St. Louis. At least that's what he told me, and I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about that experience as well because it looked like he had some primo seats for the wrestling event that he attended. We also have to get to our guy from Kingdom Says Podcast. Our guy Arrowhead Tom is going to be joining us. This is his debut premiere on the show. We tried to have his co-host Kyle Henning on a while back, but Kyle had some other important things to do. But we love our guys over at Kingdom Says Podcast. Whenever we get an opportunity to have them on, we will have them on because they're great guys. They have a great show, and I got to get Arrowhead Tom's thoughts, opinions, and takes on the current status of the Kansas City Chiefs. We're obviously going to be handing out some L's at the end of the show, maybe even to one of us on the actual platform. I can't decide yet, but nevertheless, guys, we have a lot to get to, so let's just go ahead and get to it right now. So, ending last week's show, I told you guys, I told you throughout the entire episode, Trevor and I were bouncing back thoughts and bouncing back our confidence of what we had in this team. And I'll take it all the way back to the beginning of the season. I told you guys that this was, to me, the greatest Chiefs team that I've ever seen assembled. I think this is the first time that the Chiefs had everything they really needed on both sides of the ball for the first time, at least in my lifetime. I can't speak on the teams in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, but since I've been alive and watched this team from the 90s on, I can't tell you guys with any conviction that I've seen a better roster put together, especially with the coaching staff being together as long as it has been. And throughout the season, for the first 5-6 weeks, we really had to start questioning things. Is this really the team we thought they were going to be? Is this really a team that could continue the success they've had since 2018, since the Mahomes era began? There were a lot of questions. There was a lot of soul searching from the fan base and from the team itself. And then you saw the team start to gain that momentum back, and you started to see a team that we believed was there all along, that was inside this team all along, and they went on a long winning streak, and they started to show us what they really were, which was a championship contending team. And going into the playoffs, knowing they had to play the Steelers, I knew that game was something that, to quote my guy Nick Wright, was pretty much better than a bye. It was going to be something to get the Chiefs really ignited and put into the platform of the playoffs and focused and excited, quite frankly, because when you see your team out there excelling like that at home in primetime television, basically and essentially retiring a great quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger, I think that ignites a team. And then, obviously, the Bills game comes about, and we know that this is a team that dedicated all of this last offseason to beat the Chiefs because of how they took a traumatic loss in the AFC Championship just 1 year ago and how they were hell-bent on getting that revenge in Arrowhead. And then the Chiefs took care of business and had maybe the greatest game we've ever seen, and Patrick Mahomes absolutely lit the world on fire and had maybe the greatest quarterback performance we'd ever seen. So going into this last week against a team that I believe the Chiefs are just completely superior to in almost every single regard, I was absolutely 100% confident that this Chiefs team was going to take care of business. They were going to go in here. They were going to mop the floor with the Bengals. I told you guys that all week long I'd slept great. I was feeling confident. I knew this team was going to get to their third consecutive Super Bowl. And the first half happened. And I told you guys, Trevor, you and I were watching this game, I told you guys that I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to have a 5-touchdown game. And that first half happened, and it looked like Patrick Mahomes might have had a 10-touchdown game the way he was playing. The Chiefs were getting any and everything they wanted on the offensive side, and the defense was playing very good. It looked like Joe Burrow was shook early. They couldn't get anything going downfield, and the defense was giving the offense everything they needed, and it looked like the Chiefs were going to absolutely blow out the Cincinnati Bengals. 21-3. The Bengals answered back, scored their first touchdown of the game with just a few minutes to go in the first half. And I'm thinking, that shit's going to happen. Bengals are a very talented team. They're gonna get their points here and there, especially in a moment like that where I felt like the Chiefs just eased up just a little bit. They're a team that's known to do that. What I didn't realize is that the Chiefs are going to drive all the way down the field the very next drive, and it was the final drive of the first half. What I didn't realize is they were going to find a way to not score any points when they were within feet of the end zone to be able to go up 18 points. Now, there was a key play on this drive that I want to address because this is the play that I think changed the entirety of the game, and the momentum completely shifted over to the Bengals. You saw Patrick Mahomes have 5 seconds left on the clock. There is no timeouts left. They, to me, had a perfect play drawn up. Andy Reid wanted to go for the points. He wanted to kick the field goal and just get into the second half because the Chiefs were going to have the ball at the beginning of the third quarter. But Andy Reid did something that I have been banging the table for, to trust Patrick Mahomes and not take the ball out of his hands. Because as we saw just a week previous to this game, Andy Reid did something that I did not like at all. He took the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands in the red zone and let Blake Bell try to create some foolish play, in my opinion. Some people thought it was a smart play. I didn't. But he took the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hand, and I hated that because I want this team to win and lose games with Patrick Mahomes dictating it. And he decided to trust Patrick Mahomes in this play. And even though that play absolutely failed, Patrick Mahomes made a bad decision by throwing it to Tyreek Hill laterally, not in the end zone, giving himself an opportunity to either score a touchdown quick or get himself a quick incompletion and then kick the field goal with maybe a second or two remaining. Instead, Patrick Mahomes made the wrong decision, and the clock drained out, and the Chiefs were left empty-handed, up 21-10, going into halftime. Now, you look at that and you think, oh, well, that failed. That was wrong of Andy Reid to do. I will disagree on this because, again, I think when you pay Patrick Mahomes the money he's making and you put him in such prime, astute platforms where he's this guy that we all call the Grim Reaper and been calling all week long, that's the guy I'm going to allow to make that decision. And Andy Reid, to trust him, I think was the right decision regardless if it worked or not. Because that's how you win and lose games, is what Patrick Mahomes gives you on the offensive side. And going into that final play, Patrick Mahomes had more touchdowns or just as many touchdowns in that game as incompletions. So he was cooking. And he had just come off of 4 incredible quarters and an overtime against the Bills where I don't think any other quarterback could play to that level. And we talked about that on last week's episode. So I'm not going to get upset for Andy Reid trusting that guy and doing what I felt was best for the team at that time. It just didn't work. Now, going into the second half, I'm going to be honest with you guys. At halftime, I wasn't worried still, but it was almost chilling to me how similar it was to the previous game in Week 17 against the Bengals. Because here we were looking at a team that was up 11 points, that had a very frustrating final drive against the Bengals on offense, knowing they had the ball coming back to them, and knowing that there was only 3 points put on the board in Week 17. I'm looking at everybody else. I'm like, guys, there's just no way the Chiefs are going to pull this same exact routine they pulled in Week 17. They're going to learn their lesson. Of course the Chiefs aren't going to. Look at the way they're moving the ball on the Bengals right now. We're in Arrowhead, feeling good. Like, the Super Bowl is literally two quarters away. If the Chiefs just play moderate to average offense, they're going to win this game by double digits. And then the unexplainable happens. Now, I'm not going to sit here and break down what happened in that second half because I know you guys are all trying to get over it just like I am. But maybe just like me, you're also just as frustrated as you were that day. Because the facts of the matter in all of this is the Chiefs had no business losing this game. And I say the Chiefs lost the game because the Bengals didn't beat the Chiefs last Sunday. I know. Joe Burrow is getting all this praise. People are starting to make this case that he's the next Tom Brady, even though he's literally not won anything meaningful to this point. He's gotten to the Super Bowl. I'm going to give him all the credit in the world, and I tip my cap to the Bengals and their Bengals fans because, man, it's been a long time since they've been able to do this, and I know what that's like. I understand what that's like to wait a lifetime to see your team in the Super Bowl. But the Chiefs literally handed this game to the Bengals, and I think everybody knows that on either side of the table. Whether you're a Bengals fan, whether you're a Chiefs fan, or maybe you're just a fan of football. You know that's what happened. And as great as Patrick Mahomes was for the last 6 quarters and some change, he was equally as terrible in the second half. And it all started, I believe, once he saw that touchdown not go through at the end of the first half, because then when he throws the interception, the first of his interceptions, his first of his 2, you saw his confidence absolutely wane, and it absolutely dropped off the table. And the reason why this one shakes me up the most, it isn't just because the Chiefs lost an opportunity to get to their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl, and I believe would have won regardless of who they ended up facing in this Super Bowl. It's the fact that for the first time in the Mahomes era, I have to question what exactly this era is going to be moving forward when it comes to how much confidence I can have in each and every game. Now, let me say, I am fully and still completely on the side that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football, and I would put my money on him over any quarterback in the league. I'm still very much on that side, and I wouldn't want anybody else over Patrick Mahomes. But I thought those types of losses were behind us. I thought those types of losses were in the montage of Clay Windler and Red Tribe Cinema's Rise of Mahomes video, when they show the Steve Bono chokes, when they show Alex Smith choking, when they show Elvis Gerbach choking, when they show Matt Castle choking, when they see all these disappointing losses that the Chiefs should have won in the playoffs, home games, missing field goals, all kinds of choke jobs happening. I thought those days were 100% behind us. And they're not, because it now has happened in the Mahomes era. And we have to embrace that. We have to accept that, as much as it sucks to say. Because Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid choked. And now we have to watch a Super Bowl where we are watching a team that has no business being in that Super Bowl in the place of the Kansas City Chiefs, because the Chiefs gave them that. I said a day after, and I was still very much angry. I looked at Eddie. I said, dude, what they should have done, the Chiefs should have just saved the time, walked over to Zach Taylor and his team on the Bengals sideline with a present with a bow on top. It's all gift wrapped, and just said, here is your trip to the Super Bowl. We're going to gift wrap this and hand this to you, because that's what we're going to do in the second half anyway. So let's just save the time, and you guys rest up and get ready for the Super Bowl. Because that's what happened. I don't want to sound like a bitter fan. I want to sound like a real fan. I want to give all the respect in the world for the Bengals for getting here, because no one expected them to get to this point. I don't even think Bengals fans did. And I want to see greatness in the Super Bowl. I want to see a great Super Bowl, because I'm a football fan too. But the Chiefs missed a golden opportunity with this team. And what sucks is, and I know most of us think it, that it's going to last forever. This regime, the running back era, the running back tour is going to last forever. And this team will just stay the same, and they'll continue to win the way they've won. Guys, it's over. This era of the Chiefs, as we know it, is done. You've already seen pieces of the coaching staff finally being chipped away. Eric Bieniemy's got his interview with the Saints today. I believe it's either today or tomorrow. Mike Kafka, Chiefs' longtime quarterbacks coach, gone with the Giants. You're seeing pieces of this start to go away. There's going to be free agents this time around. They're going to be gone. They're not going to be resigned to one-year deals. There's going to be a lot of pieces that we're familiar with that are going to be gone. So now the Chiefs have to reconvene and retool. This is not going to be a rebuild. This is going to be a retooling, which means that growing pains are going to be a part of this, which means the Chiefs are going to have to refine themselves. And to be honest with you guys, I'm ready for it. Because as great as this team has been over the last 4 seasons, there have been a lot of inefficiencies and deficiencies on this roster and on this coaching staff, and it is time to make those changes. Because I believe that the Chiefs have put themselves in prime position to continue to win, but there's also this thing that we know about, and it's called time. And time is something that we none of us can avoid. And the Chiefs have prolonged this as long as they can. But if they want to continue to win in the Mahomes era and get themselves back to more AFC championships and Super Bowls, they're going to have to retool this offense. They're going to have to retool this defense and focus on how they can prolong the winning. But as it currently stands with this current team, guys, a lot of changes are coming, and I hope everybody's ready, because I think some of us are going to be upset, because one thing I know about Kansas City Chiefs fans is that we're loyal and we love our players. No matter where you're from, whether the team drafted them, you're a free agent, you are a traded player, whatever the case is, we cling on to these guys. Well, you're going to have to be able to let go to some of these players if you want to see this team continue to win. And this Bengals game, I think, showed that. I think it showed that the Chiefs need a refocus on the offensive side, get a little bit more creative on things. I think Patrick Mahomes really needs to take this offseason and work on some of the things he's been obviously struggling with all season long. The Chiefs were still struggling with facing defenses that make in-game adjustments. The Bengals, I know Andy Reid, and I know all these guys were saying, the Bengals, we didn't see anything different than them on the defensive side. Well, I did. I watched the All-22s. I saw the way they were playing defense differently. And Patrick Mahomes looked shook. Period. Point blank. They need more weapons on offense. They got to have a better pass rush on the defensive side. And this game was a representation of that. Trust me when I say, guys, this one, I'm going to look back in 10 years from now, and Patrick Mahomes is going to have like 3 or 4 more Super Bowl championships, and I'm going to still go, how in the hell did they lose that game? There's no excuse for it. I'm not going to sit here and try to play it down. I'm going to give you guys a lot of comfort as the show continues. Trust me when I say the Chiefs will be back. And I feel very confident in saying that because there's not a better quarterback and head coach tandem in the league, let alone the AFC, than what the Chiefs have right now. And I will take them each and every single day for the foreseeable future. But the Chiefs squandered a golden opportunity to not just get back to the Super Bowl, but to win a Super Bowl. And I'm being angry about this one for a very long time. Trevor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time, like I said, immediately after the game that evening, this is the first time Patrick Mahomes has actually let us down. Even during the game last week when we were going down in that final drive in regulation, and you're like, this is what he does. Everything is gonna be all right. It's grim, blah blah blah. And
I did say those things.
Yeah. You know what? No, that's fine. You have every right to, and we had every right to believe in him, and Patrick had every right to believe in himself. But no one is exempt from failures. No one is exempt from having all-time letdowns. It happens to everybody, right? This is a tough sport. It's tough to be in this position as consistently as we've been. Hosting 4 straight AFC championship games. It's never been done before, in any division. So it's hard, man. The football is a hard sport. It's difficult to be successful. So look, I mean, we got to take this one on the chin. And my only hope is Patrick Mahomes grows from this. Because I agree with you. I think Patrick Mahomes, this was the best version of Patrick Mahomes we've seen yet this year because he was forced to adjust and took a minute. It took a good 5 weeks this season to figure out how to, rebrand himself in a way to where he can kind of be more of a surgical quarterback instead of the big time, chop you down quick, rip your heart out kind of quarterback, which he still obviously is that guy. And I felt he did a good job most of the year adjusting and becoming that guy. But when we needed him to do that the most, and we needed him to adjust to defenses, he didn't want to do that. He was still riding that high of hero ball in the Buffalo Bills game, and he might have been a little overconfident, a little overjuiced, and thinking he can just overcome whatever it is. And we fell short, man. And I think Patrick Mahomes takes at least 90% of the blame in that game. 7 possessions we had in the second half. 7, 3 points. You know what I mean? Like, that's 100% unacceptable for the standard that we've set here in the city for this team, and what Patrick Mahomes has single-handedly set standard-wise for this team. So that's just unacceptable, man. So, I mean, this game was it was a tale of 2 halves. The first half we were like basically calling it a wrap. Like, I was like, dude, we're gonna blow these guys out. And I tend to think less that it was the last play of the first half that shot his confidence down. I think the problem is we were overconfident even after that play. Yeah. I think we came into the second half like, yeah, fuck that play, man. I know he left a touchdown on the board or off the board. It is what it is. We left it on the field. Sucks, but we're going to go out here. We're going to just continue to do what we do. And we're going to just continue to scorch them like we did in the first half. Nope. They were bringing 3 or 4 guys on the defensive line, and they were still getting after Patrick Mahomes because he was out there dancing around too long, not going through his reads good enough, not checking it down, not getting the ball. And that's play calling in Patrick Mahomes, right? We weren't getting the ball out quick when they were zoning everyone out with us, and they were even sacrificing another body just being a spy for Patrick Mahomes. That leaves running backs wide open for dump offs. That leaves running backs. They're spotting you 5 yards if you just run the ball. Everyone is back. They're running. They're bringing 3 and dropping 8. Run the ball. Get the ball out quick to Tyreek or McKinnon or whoever, and just they're granting you 5 yards every play like that because everyone was back. So I just don't understand how we can go 7 possessions and not recognize that, and Patrick Mahomes not recognize that he needs. He could have ran the ball a lot. I know there was a spy, but there's moments where he could have just climbed the pocket and just took off and got 5-6 yards easy, maybe more. Just move the sticks, and we were unable to move the sticks. And that was the most frustrating part, man, this slow death that we endured in that second half to literally give that game away because the Bengals did not do anything special. I will give Joe Burrow the the kudos here because he did do what Patrick wouldn't. He escaped the pocket, he evaded the pressure, and would run and extended plays and kept those drives alive, and it was just enough to give them that victory. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes was just he looked lost out there, man. He was lost in his own sauce, right? Because usually this works out for us. Usually his scramble ability, his ability to extend plays and throw the ball deep and find guys open and throw guys open, it works it's always worked. It's worked way more than it hasn't, right? Especially in big games. And this came to a point where, this is in the history books of where it failed, where he failed. And all I can hope is that Patrick Mahomes can learn from this. I'm not really going to talk about our defense much. I know Chris Jones had opportunities to sack Joe Burrow, let him slip. But our defense only allowed 27 points, including overtime. Right. I'm not going to fault them, bro. That is an elite offense that we only allowed 27 points with extended play after regulation and overtime. I feel like they did a good enough job. Patrick Mahomes, we had 21 going into the half. We ended with 24, dude. That's unacceptable offensively. That's 100% on the offense in the play calling of Patrick Mahomes. This is a fork in the road moment. The guy's 26. He's got a few more years till he even hits his peak. It's just the fact that Patrick Mahomes has had so much success. I know we rant on this often. So much success so early that the standard is so high, and for good reason because it's there, man. There's no lowering the bar again. The bar is set to where it is, and we have expectations. And he failed, man. And Andy Reid failed. Whoever was calling the plays, whether it was Bieniemy or Andy Reid, it depends on whichever post-game presser you listen to. Some of these guys both claim that they're calls. I think they both call calls. Either way, the lack of adjustments offensively was just unacceptable, unforgivable. Honestly, I'm never going to get over this loss. This might be the worst loss in franchise history. Granted, for what was going into it and the hype that was behind it, and everyone wanting to crown Burrow already. And us being absolutely appalled by that, and then we go fucking lose to him. This one burns deep, man. So, it was definitely heartbreaking and very, very confused. I was probably more confused than angry after the game. I was very puzzled to why we refused. I don't know if it was arrogance. I don't know if it was just incompetency.
It could have.
The second half of Andy Reid letting Mahomes, because Andy Reid wanted to kick that field goal at the end. We would have won the game if we just did that. That's what sucks the most. But I'm with you on us trusting Patrick Mahomes to go out there, and so when he says I got it, he's got it, because 9 times out of 10 and 9.5 times out of 10,
it used to be 10.
Got it. Yeah. So now we have a reason to doubt, which is fine. Right? He's finally given us that reason. That we've seen Tom Brady fail. We've seen all the greats fail in big moments. We've seen all the greats choke. All of them have done it.
Every single one of them.
All of them. There's no one exempt from a choke job. This one just happened to be maybe one of the grandest scales possible. We're a game away from the Super Bowl. Last time he missed out on the Super Bowl was because of a defensive player jumping off sides, and he didn't have a chance to do what he does. And this time falls on his shoulders, man. And it sucks. This one's in the history books forever. He's got to take this on the chin. 26 years old. He's got the brightest future of anybody in this league. He's got arguably one of the greatest coaches, top 3 coaches of all time behind him. We just got to take this and learn from it. Patrick Mahomes is only going to get better in my mind. We still got this offense going into this next season. We absolutely threw this game away, man, and it sucks to accept that.
Yeah, this is all on the offense. I can't even bash the defense. You can say, they didn't get no sacks or whatever. It's the worst offensive line. They did their job. They held Jamar Chase. He didn't do nothing this game. They pretty much kept Joe Burrow at bay for an entire half. Well, for 2 halves, if you really think about it.
He was ass in the first half.
Yeah, because Joe Burrow really didn't do much. All his numbers came in the second half. And the only reason a lot of those numbers came is because this defense kept going back out there. They weren't getting any breaks, so this defense was tired. They were gassed. Yep. And there's only the offense to blame why this defense was gassed and was able to give those points away. Mahomes, when I think they went 2 in a row, 3 and outs. I think it was back-to-back 3 and outs. You can't have that. Last game, we had the excuse of we only had 3 possessions in the second half, and then the refs kind of gave the game away. This game, they had over 5 or 6 possessions.
7. Seven.
In the second half.
Yeah.
That's just unacceptable. You can't have 3 points in the second half. And I agree with Trevor with the whole putting a little bit of doubt in our mind with the whole Patrick Mahomes saying I got it. I like that. I love that attitude from Patrick.
You want that confidence.
Yeah, I love that attitude from Patrick Mahomes that he's always like, hey, let me get the play on like 4th and short. He's always like, let me get that play. But at that moment, you were leading by was it 11 point? A little bit over 11 points. I can't remember.
21-10.
Was it
11
21-10?
points?
Yeah. So 11 points. At that point, as a head coach, you have to come to mind as like, okay, we're playing against a really good team. The second half in week 17 or week 6, I can't remember. They came back and beat us. We have to take the points we get. At some point, Andrew Reid has to step in and say, I love your confidence, but I'd rather get the points here. So now, I don't know if now it's going to put a little bit more doubt into Andy Reid's 4th and shorts that he used to do a lot with Patrick Mahomes this season. I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it's going to change anything because that's the confidence and the attitude you want from your quarterback. But there's some calls that you might, as a head coach, want to make, even though you have Patrick Mahomes at your quarterback position. Sometimes it's better to take the points that you have now instead of risking it and avoid not getting any points. But
I agree with you, and our guy Arrowhead Tom will be joining us in just a few moments. But I want to piggyback off what you guys had to react to what you both just broke down, because I do think there is an interesting dynamic when it comes to Andy Reid and him dictating when to trust Patrick Mahomes in those moments, because I feel like that moment is a lot like Steph Curry taking a shot from 35 feet out. Like, is it ideally a great shot? No. But if it goes in, you're like, well, Steve Kerr's not probably going to get mad about that one. And so that's kind of where I sit on it. It's like what Trevor just said is what I think shocks us the most about this game in its entirety, is that for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' playoff career, he failed.
I think in his entire career.
Yeah, because
not even playoff
if
career,
you think
I think
about
overall
it,
in general.
Yeah, if you think about it, like Trevor said, the only reason the Chiefs didn't go to the Super Bowl in 2018 is because of D Ford lining up offsides and Patrick didn't get the ball in the overtime. Yeah. So we know that. Contextualized, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the Super Bowl in 2020, we all know they didn't win because why? The front seven of the Buccaneers absolutely obliterated that horrible offensive line. Yeah, you can't put that on Patrick Mahomes, so he didn't fail. This is the first time we all can look at each other in the eye and say he failed, which is like, I'm with Trevor. The anger subsided. I'm still angry, but it subsided to the point where confusion took the brunt of my emotions. Or that was the most of my emotions. Like, did I really just see him fail? I can't believe I just saw, and to be honest with you, no disrespect for the Bengals, but let's just call it what it is. This isn't even close to the best team they have faced in the playoffs in his tenure. Not even close.
The Bills were such a better team.
Yes, just a week ago.
Well, you got to think about the psyche, too, behind why Andy Reid wouldn't just, like, overpower and veto.
Yes.
Use his veto power as the head coach over Patrick Mahomes, because that might psychologically mess with Patrick Mahomes as well. I'm not saying that he's, like, psychologically malleable, but
I'm sure Patrick Mahomes would understand with 5 seconds left, like, you risk a play, like, exactly what happened of not finding your target and wasting the 5 seconds, not getting any points. So I'm sure Patrick Mahomes would understand. It's like, we had 5 seconds. I thought we could have ran one more play, but hey, I'll take the 3 points. You know.
And if you, the thing about this game too is that what sucks about this so badly again is the obvious is there. You don't get to the Super Bowl, right? That sucks. Like, no matter how you twist it, that's always gonna be the worst part. Yeah. But also, guys, we all talk about how that Bills-Chiefs game was the best game maybe we've ever watched in history of football. Of all the thousands and thousands of games, it doesn't even matter now.
It's irrelevant.
Like, that game's not going to be remembered as much as it should have been. If the Chiefs just got to the Super Bowl and say they lost to the Rams, that's still an all-time classic. Yeah. But because the Chiefs literally squandered a 11-point lead at home in the AFC Championship just a week later, that game's not going to be remembered the way it should be. And that sucks. Because Patrick Mahomes should be praised for that game forever. But now that's going to be one of those, oh, yeah, but remember what happened that next week? You know what I mean? It's always going to be one of those yeah buts.
The thing is, yeah buts, but yeah, what I like about it is we have an opportunity here. Patrick hasn't, and I know right now we're just basking in the suck, and it sucks, right? But this can be a defining moment in his career, a pivotal defining moment in Patrick Mahomes' career where he takes that next corner. Because we still, as great as he's already been, we still don't know what he's fully capable of. Because we see it still. He's still kind of a wild horse,
And
right? And there's still things that he's going to develop into. I mean, it's just because he had such a hot start. He's still a kid out there, man. He's 26, so like he's got so much more development to. In becoming a full package quarterback, there's still things he struggles with. In-game adjustments, going through his progressions and his reads. He's got to get better at that. Reading defenses he still struggles with that. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say reading defense. He showed us this past game that he still struggles very much with reading a defense.
I'm taking that as a positive though, not a negative.
Yes, because obviously he's learned, and we saw him obviously the start of this season and how they adjusted to him being able to read those cover two defenses.
Yeah,
right.
So we know Patrick Mahomes is capable of it, but when you throw something new at him, it flicks a switch on Patrick Mahomes to where he I don't know if his abilities just shuts down.
Well, they literally let Patrick Mahomes just beat himself.
Well, you guys know that I don't like to compare him to Brett Favre as much because he's a much smarter quarterback than Brett Favre was,
especially at this stage.
But the one thing he does that is a lot like Brett Favre is he sees things and goes, "Oh, I can fit the ball there."
Yes.
So because he has the arm talent like Brett Favre, in fact, it's probably better
because he's done it numerous times.
Yes.
So when you become that confident,
so when he sees drop 7 and drop 8 defenses, he's going, "Oh, I'm still gonna find the spot.
Yeah.
Just give me that extra second."
I'm still not throwing a double coverage to Tyron.
Yeah, and then he's running 15 yards back. He's running 15 yards back on that final drive in regulation, and Travis Kelce's wide open in the end zone, doesn't even see him because he's so focused on creating these crazy ass plays. And so that's the frustrating part of all this. And we're gonna talk much more about this. Let me fix my camera here or my
headphones. Got it.
Yeah.
There.
It's a tangled mess over here, as usual. Get our guy Arrowhead Tom here in just a second. It's under all those, that's why. Okay. It's the beautiful thing about live stream, people. It's still gonna be tangled.
Well,
you just gotta feed it underneath. Feed it underneath, yeah. There we are. All right. Sure we hear our guy loud and clear. Is he on with us?
Yes.
All right. Well, I am honored. I am privileged to have a guy that I believe is going to bring some calm to the storm. He's got a very calm demeanor to him, so I figured this was a perfect opportunity to have our guy on here. He is from the Kingdom Says podcast. He is a man that I believe has honest takes, which is something we very much appreciate here. He's not a hot take guy. He's not a guy that tries to sensationalize things to get people to pay attention. People just pay attention because I believe that people believe he is an honest person, and we believe that here. So he's the co-host of the Kingdom Says pod. He's a draft Twitter guy, which I appreciate because that is now a part of the conversation here in Kansas City. Let's give it up for our guy, Arrowhead Tom!
That's the first applause I've ever gotten. How are you guys doing? I was listening to that conversation, eager to just jump in. I think, man, the conversation, I was thinking about this morning about we've seen this trend from Brett Beach where when something causes him to lose a playoff game, he goes in the offseason and blows it up. Whether it was the defense in 2018, the offensive line this past year, I'm like, well, what do you do with Patrick Mahomes? So there's my hot take. They're going to get rid of Patrick Mahomes. I'm kidding. For the record, I'm kidding. No, I think, and I got the privilege to be at that game in person, thanks to my awesome little brother who bought tickets. But you guys were talking about the field goal, before half. I don't know if it showed it on the broadcast. Harrison Butker was like, 10 or 15 yards onto the field, and Mahomes was like, no, go back. It was really, and we've seen that before. And I think that it's good that Andy puts that trust in Mahomes. I just think it was the other part about that is if he hands that ball off to Jarek, he walks in for that touchdown. They are playing the pass. And so some of that is just having we know that he's got the courage to throw the ball anytime but do you have the stones to hand that ball off there? Because I know if it goes sideways, that's an issue, but it was wide open. You have to make a better read on that RPO, and it has to be an actual option, there to run the ball. Otherwise, it's not a threat. And the Bengals didn't treat it like a threat. That's why Jarek was able to literally walk in, without the ball. But I initially thought he scored because I thought he had handed the ball off because the hole was so big, and Jarek just went right. I was like, touchdown. And I was like, oh no, but Pat still got the ball. Crap.
Yeah.
So that one was, there's a lot of layers to that. And then just speaking more about Mahomes, what I saw, and this is what I was a little afraid of after last season with that offensive line. You see this especially with young quarterbacks. I think Mahomes gets in his head a little bit when things start to break down, and we talk about him bailing out of clean pockets early and that type of thing. And he's done so much better this year. Obviously, with an improved offensive line, you can do that. You can be a little more patient. But I felt that the pressure got to him a little bit. Like mentally, the pressure got to him. That dropping back 15 yards on that one play was completely unnecessary. But that's and there were guys open. I mean, I'm up in in the stadium. We're going, look, Travis, like and it's a completely different thing when you're watching from the stands or from TV, and versus when you're on the field and you've got 300-pound guys running at you. But man, it is, like you guys said, it's heartbreaking. It hurts. It's hard to talk about and to think about, and you have to wonder what's next for this team. And I think you're right when we say there's going to be a lot of changes, and there's going to be. I was thinking about it as we were leaving the stadium, like, are we going to give Travis another ring before he retires? Travis isn't young. Tyreek is, he's getting there. Like, how long is that nucleus going to really hang around before we have to really start turning over more parts of this team than we're ready to? And it happens fast in sports. You have all these fond memories, and then the next thing you know, the team is completely different. So, cherish the good times while you have them. Value Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and especially Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, I just think that it's a tough one. It'll be really interesting to see how Veach approaches the offseason. But the biggest thing for me is making sure that Patrick Mahomes mentally, and it's so hard because you can't practice that during the offseason necessarily. But when you're in that situation, not bailing from the pocket, not dropping back 15 yards or whatever, you have to be able to, and you don't want to coach that out of him. You still want him to make those dynamic plays, but to understand situationally, it's more important for you to stay, if he gets sacked and it's a 5-yard loss, and then they can make a pass from the 11 or 12 instead of the 25 or 30, you have another shot at the end zone versus just settling for that field goal kick. So it's one of those things that I'm sure he's going to watch on film a lot this offseason and analyze, and just knowing how competitive he is, that we'll see some changes there. But there's all my thoughts on everything that you guys just discussed for the past 30 minutes.
No, and I appreciate that, because that was going to be my base question, if you will. But moving from that, because as you mentioned just now, I 100% agree. It's something I started this show off with, is the fact that the Take It Back tour is dead. It's over, and the new era has to begin with some familiar faces and a lot of new faces, and I think that we need to be prepared for that, and we quite frankly should be excited about that, because I think if we've seen anything from Brett Veach over this last year or two, that when he focuses on one particular area of the team, he goes and knocks it out of the park, and I think we need to give him that trust. But when it comes to pieces that are not going to be going anywhere, we know that Andy Reid is going to be here. He's going to be the coach for the foreseeable future still. He very much is still a great coach, and he wants to continue coaching. But one thing that I think we need to start holding Andy Reid more accountable with, and I am one of those people that criticize Andy Reid because I think he gets in his own way a lot of times, kind of like Patrick Mahomes. It's the fact that he is obsessed with neglecting and avoiding the run game. And what's frustrating about this particular matchup is that on only 24 rushes, the Chiefs got 139 yards. That's over 5.5 yards a carry. And in the second half, they only got 9 rushes, but got almost 60 yards of rushing yards. So, and like you said about the Jerick McKinnon play, he could have moonwalked into the end zone because he was that wide open. He could have literally just he could have somersaulted into the end zone and would have been just fine. And the obsession with, and I get it because I love watching Patrick throw the ball. I said that he was going to have 5 touchdowns in that game. He should have had 5 touchdowns in that game. But the avoidance of the run game to me is so criminal, because if we've seen other dynasties of the past, I know that the game evolves, but there is still true principles to them and consistent principles to every dynasty. They run the ball and they run it well. And I think that the biggest reason why Andy Reid doesn't have more Super Bowls in his career, or has been to more Super Bowls in his career, is because he doesn't like to play more of a balanced offense. Tom, what do you see? Do you think that Andy Reid is so set in his ways that he's going to refuse to move off of that? Or do you think that he's going to look at this film a lot like Patrick Mahomes in this game and go, okay, It's time to start implementing more of a run game and balanced attack to give our team the best chance of winning big games like that and avoiding colossal collapses in the playoffs like that.
Yeah, so I think that's been a criticism of Andy Reid going back to his days in Philadelphia. So I think that it's probably something that he's aware of, and probably something that it's a tendency thing as a coach, especially in the heat of the moment. In a big play, you want to go with what you're comfortable with, and it's hard to settle down and go, okay. And I vividly remember the first play in overtime. I'm going, why are we passing the ball? Run the ball here. It's first down, overtime. The thing about running the ball for this offense especially is, and I felt this way the whole second half, they were out of rhythm. They were rushed. The offense was, and they couldn't get it together. But they were running successfully the entire game. And so I felt like if you have a few more of those handoffs, you put yourselves in a second and 6, second and 3rd, those types of situations where even if you miss a pass, whereas if you throw it on that first down, like in overtime, now you're rushing yourself. You're off schedule and you're thinking, okay, I got to get 10 yards or 5 yards at least, so then we can get 5 yards the next play. There was no rhythm the second half, and that's where the benefit of the running game gets you is you have a rhythm to your offense that, again, as much as, just like you said, we all love watching Patrick Mahomes throw the football, but those RPO plays don't work if you're not running. The play actions don't work if you're not running. You have to be willing to run the ball, whether that's in overtime, whether that's in the fourth quarter. And at the end of the day, I mean, the Bengals down the stretch were running the ball. Joe Mixon was running down was gouging us in overtime, and that's a big part of it. You have to be willing to run the ball. I can't speak to whether or not Andy Reid will change that tendency. The part of me that I've been kind of chewing on is there too much comfort between Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid, where sometimes as a coaching staff, what you need is somebody in your ear to say, "Coach, we need to run the ball right now." And sometimes when you've worked with somebody for so long, you kind of get into that comfortable zone and, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And that's not a knock on Andy or Eric, but I'm just going, have they settled in, and can they, especially if Eric doesn't get a head coaching job this go around, which I think would be, a pretty sham, but that's another topic. I just think, is there some comfort there where they've settled into their tendencies? Okay, we're going to overtime. We're going to pass here, versus really challenging each other in the moment to be a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more balanced. And I think sometimes when you say the term balance, people think, oh, it's a 50-50 split. We don't want to run it. I don't think you have to be balanced in that term. You just have to have, again, that rhythm. You have to have the threat of a running game. And I think, and maybe this is a whole other conversation, we might get into the weeds here, but one of the things that I felt like was really lacking this year was those explosive plays from the running game. And I think when it comes to offense, that's what Andy Reid is looking for, especially in those running games. I mean, if you think back to Damian Williams, he wasn't the best running back, and he had plenty of frustrating plays, but every now and then he would rip one off, 30, 40, 80 yards, whatever. Clyde Edwards-Helaire does not have – I think you can count the number of 20-plus yard runs on one hand that he has in his career so far, and you compare that to some of the other backs in that class. Everyone was excited about Jerick McKinnon because he actually had some juice when he was running.
Yeah.
Darrell Williams is great, but he's a role player. He's not the guy that you're going to bring in every down. I think that the team knows that. So I think that there's some interesting questions to answer about the running game, especially with how this offensive line has been rebuilt. I'll just put this in perspective. If you put Jonathan Taylor behind the Chiefs' offensive line, what do you think those numbers look like? I mean, that's just, comparing the Colts and the Chiefs' offensive lines and all that. Again, different offenses, I know, but I think that the lack of explosiveness from the run game and just kind of this general, like, there's not an alpha dog in that room, and they want Clyde to be that guy, but he has not been that guy yet. And so I think that goes back to, does Andy really trust the running backs? Does he trust the running game?
That's a fair question, because
Do
I
you
think
think
that's
he'll ever be the guy?
Well, that's something we're gonna have to discover. You have a rookie deal. You have a guy that's in the first round, so he has a fifth-year option. I think the Chiefs are going to be exercising that opportunity. What pisses me off about it, and it's ironic, is because it's called run it back, but running is the last thing the Chiefs like doing offensively. That's one thing. You draft a guy in the first round. You know that's high quality draft assets and you don't utilize the run game, especially with this type of running back, you would think that you would at least be getting pass plays out of him more often. That didn't happen until later in the season. Even that was very sparse. But moving forward with this roster, Tom, I know you're a draft guy, and I know you guys love dropping those lists you guys have out there, and I love what you guys do over at Kingdom Says. With looking at the current structure of the roster, there's going to be a lot of movement. I mean, there's tons of free agents on this team right now. That's just the unrestricted free agents. The Chiefs currently sit around $14.5 million in cap space. They're anticipating they're going to get a bump because of the bump in cap space from one year to the next with the NFL going out of the COVID situations and money's going to be rolling through. But, I mean, you're also talking about Anthony Hitchens is going to be off the books, which is going to save the Chiefs about $8.5 million. Extending Tyreek Hill, which I think is paramount for this offseason for the Chiefs to do. If they extend him and move his non-guaranteeds to fully guaranteeds, it would move to about $13 million in cap space for the Chiefs as well. Cutting ties with Frank Clark would save the Chiefs an additional $20 million. And if you look at the what Joel Corey from Spot Track was saying, I think this is the most inevitable move this offseason. Patrick Mahomes converting his salary cap room, his third day of the 2022 regular year roster bonus would move the cap hit from $35.7 million to $13.8, which is going to save the Chiefs an additional $20+ million. So the Chiefs are going to have, in just a few moves right there, tons of cap space, tons of opportunity to either re-sign guys they want to re-sign, which I believe it's going to be Tyreek Hill, it's going to be Orlando Brown Jr. Those are the two most common sense moves. But there is a veteran on this team currently that a lot of people still want back, and it's Tyron Matthew. And I'd love to get your take on this. Do you think Tyron Matthew should be retained? What kind of contract do you think the Chiefs would be offering if, in fact, he does stay in Kansas City?
Man, that's such – in some ways, that's an easy question and also the most impossible question to answer at the same time. Do I want Tyron Matthew back in Kansas City? Absolutely. Do I think that he is one of the top players at his position? Yes. Do I think that he has embraced like what it means to be a Chief, and is he a leader on this team? Yeah, like all those things. And I don't have any issue with his play on the field. I think that my crossroads comes to looking at the rest of this team, and Patrick Mahomes has his big contract, but at some point you have to pay the bills, and you look around it and it's not just, we talk about the big free agents, but there's a lot of guys that are coming off the books. Charvarius Ward, Derek Nottie, Jerron Reed. There's a lot of like role players, depth players, guys who we're seeing starting snaps who are going to come off the books. And so if you don't re-sign those guys, you have to replace them, and that costs money. So for me, when people talk about, do you bring Matthew back? It has zero to do with his play on the field. It has zero to do with his worth. It has more to do with the cost of retaining him while knowing you have to rebuild. And this isn't, we haven't talked about it, but you're going to have to rebuild this defense. If you move on from Hitchens and Clark, and there are some good pieces here. There are foundations, right? You have Chris Jones, you have Willie Gay, you have Nick Bolton, you have L'Jarius Sneed. So you have a piece at every level, but you have to build around those guys. You guys were talking about, Chris Jones and all the almost sacks. I remember screaming, "Where's everybody else?" When Chris Jones was almost wrapping up Joe Burrow. No, there was no other defensive lineman even close to getting to him, and that's what you want. You don't want you to have to rely on one guy to get there. You want to have a track meet, and it's, hey, I'll see you at the quarterback.
Yeah,
and that's what that's what you want, and we haven't had that since Tom Bahali and Justin Houston. It's usually been one guy, Chris Jones, and sometimes Frank Clark is there to clean up, but. I think that it's safe to say that there's going to be a lot of movement on this defense. If there's a piece that they keep, I do hope that it's Matthew. I think that he is a talented player. He's versatile enough to be, scheme versatile if they ever change coaches on the defensive side. The price tag is hard because, safety is just a hard position to evaluate. But I think when you look at everything that Tyron does in terms of playing in the slot, being versatile, being a leader, I think he's worth the money. You have to weigh that versus the cost of what you have to pay to keep everybody else or to get other people back in the door.
Yeah. And looking on the outside of things, I mean, the Chiefs are going to have an opportunity to really add some talent here, some veteran talent. Now, I know that the Chiefs currently have 8 draft picks. I know they got the additional one with Ryan Poles going to the GM job over in Chicago. And if Eric Bieniemy ends up getting the job in New Orleans, or if let's say he gets another job out there that we don't know about yet, the Chiefs would have, I think, around 10 picks, and they would have, I think, 7 third-round picks over the next 2 years. And we know that this team, for some reason, in the third round seems to hit. They do really well in those middle rounds. But looking at free agents as it currently stands, I think there's an assumption here that the Chiefs are going to add that wide receiver, too, that everybody's wanted so badly and was hoping that they would get out of Josh Gordon and these other guys. But, I mean, you're talking about Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams, Will Fuller, Jamison Crowder, T.Y. Hilton, and Juju Smith-Schuster shoot off the gate right there. And there's several other names out here. Emmanuel Sanders, A.J. Green, Keelan Cole, Sammy Watkins, even Mike Williams, Zach Pascal. Like, the list goes on. There is a ton of wide receiver depth out there that the Chiefs can go and grab. And I think they're going to grab at least one of these guys. If there was one in particular that you want to see added to this offense that would make immediate impact and really take this offense to the next level, which guy do you have your eye on right now?
So this is going to be probably as improbable of any name on this list, but I think the one that I personally prefer, I would love to see Mike Williams come to Kansas City. That's a size element that you don't have on the boundary. You make your divisional opponent weaker by taking away one of their bigger receiving threats. I think he, in terms of that, like, again, that size, that jump ball guy that, we've wanted for so long. He fits that. I think that he's pretty dynamic. I've liked him since I remember him coming out as a prospect, and I was a big fan. But he's really come on the last couple of years, and he's going to get paid for it. But I still think that there's probably going to be a little bit. He struggled with injuries early on in his career and wasn't the most productive, and then had Phillip Rivers throwing him the ball. But it's a twofer for me. You get a young receiver, in your group, but you also take somebody away from Justin Herbert, right? And that's a guy that he really looks to in clutch situations. I doubt the Chargers let him out the door at all. But if we're playing, if I'm dreaming as freely as I can, give me Mike Williams, just narrowly over Chris Godwin. But I think Mike Williams has a very dynamic skill set that would complement what this offense doesn't have.
That makes sense. And if Chris Godwin heals up from that knee injury, then you're talking about a guy that just came off a career year with Tom Brady. I think that you would have an additional.
Devontae Adams is a free agent, right? Yeah.
I think we're all pipe dreaming that one. I think he's going to go wherever Aaron Rodgers ends up. So
I'm just saying.
Now on the defensive side, though, Tom, there's some really big names out there too, and I think that if we're being honest here, I think Veach is going to be looking at some edge rush and the veteran aspect. And I know that the draft is going to be somewhere, and I want to ask you about the draft as well, where you think the Chiefs attack early and often on that one, which I do believe it's going to be on the defensive side, but maybe you'll shock me on that one. But there's some names out there on the edge rush: Von Miller, Chandler Jones, Dante Fowler Jr., even old man Calais Campbell and JPP, Akeem Hicks. There's some pretty damn good names out there that the Chiefs could add on the depth. Now, we know that they loved Melvin Ingram this offseason. They wanted to grab him before the season started. They ended up getting him in the middle of the year. I think that Veach is going to spend on both sides of the ball here, and particularly on the defensive side. What name on this list makes sense for you?
All right, so I know you were talking about defensive ends and edge rushers. I'm gonna throw you a curveball.
Yep.
One of the players that I think we're going to see replaced this offseason, and I think that when I say replace, he'll be on the roster next year. I think that they're going to look to find somebody to take over Juan Thornhill's spot at free safety. It's just I don't think it's there. Like I don't. Maybe I'm alone. Maybe that's my take for the day, my hot take. But just
there it is. We were waiting for it. Waiting for it.
It seems like he's just been like half a step behind all season, just out of position. And I'm not saying Juan's a bad player. I just think maybe he has to, you have to play him in more specific situations, and maybe he's not that full-time starter that the coaching staff was kind of saying at the beginning of the year. And I think specifically, I think it was that Buffalo game where it was like he was literally one step and 1 inch away from the ball, breaking it up with this receiver deep down the field, and we were just like, what were you doing? So with that in mind, the guy that I've really thought would fit well in this defense is Marcus Williams from New Orleans. He's a younger safety. really good cover piece, and that's what you need. You know, you want somebody who can, and he's versatile enough. Again, you can bring him down closer to the line, but a really good coverage guy. I think that if you're talking about a guy you can trust back in single high or you know, even in a cover 2 look where you're covering half the field, like that's a guy that I'm excited about. And he's only 25 years old, so he's young. It'll be his second contract. There's no way New Orleans can pay him. They're like $74 million in the hole. So this
no quarterback, like they're doomed right now.
Yeah, this is a young, talented player who's going to hit the open market. And I think that when you talk about rebuilding this defense, you have a chance to throw some money at a guy who could be a cornerstone in that defense, right? So that's what I look for, especially when you talk about like rebuilding these defenses. I would love to find an edge rusher. Man, it's hard because the way that the Chiefs value defensive linemen is just so different from the rest of the league in terms of size and all that stuff. I'm a big Chandler Jones fan, even though he's a little bit up there. I don't think they take a swing at Von Miller. I imagine he'll have some interest, but that would surprise me. Dante Fowler Jr. Man, there's a name.
Yeah,
I'm looking at this. I'm going. I kind of wonder if I'd rather see them bring back Emmanuel Ogbah and spend a lot of draft capital on some younger athletic guys up front. You know, and you've got some other role players already on the team. You know, Mike Dana can kind of fill in as your early down, you know, base defensive end and stuff like that. You've got, Joshua Kando, who'll be second year in the system. I'm not holding my breath on him, but you do have him. So there's some pieces there. I think that it's edge rushers are a premier position. Not a lot of them, you know, hit the open market freely. And again, I'll go back to, if you give me one free agent on the defensive side, give me the 25-year-old free safety who can cover and run and hit. And I'm pretty confident is going to be on the market.
If the Chiefs came to you right now and said, all right, Arrowhead, Tom, your name is Arrowhead, so obviously we got to trust your knowledge here. We need you to run the draft for us this year. We need your expertise. We need your mock-up. We saw that Kingdom Says has a pretty damn good list. Mm-hmm. How are we attacking this draft, Tom?
I'm going to be aggressive. So one of the things that we need for sure is a corner. And here's the thing about like the AFC playoffs, right? You have Josh Allen, Justin Herbert's going to be back there. You have Joe Burrow. You have all these young guys, and you have these offensive that are really talented. I'm probably forgetting a big quarterback in there somewhere, but you know, you need to create a defense that can defend the pass. And I know Steve Spagnuolo has talked about the importance of defending the run, whatever. It's time to defend the pass. So we got to invest in cornerback. So if I'm in charge today and I'm sitting at pick, I don't know if we're at 29 or 30, whatever the Chiefs are at, I'm going to take one of those extra third rounders, maybe both of them, maybe a pick next year. I'm going to trade up, and I'm going to go get the best corner in this draft, and that's Ahmad Gardner, Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati. That gives me a lockdown guy for the next 5 years. He fits the system perfectly in terms of being able to press, play off, all that stuff. Good athlete, really fun player in terms of energy on the field, like super competitive. Just some of the little things that you're like, why are you even doing that? Like, why are you still running like the plays on the other side of the field? One of my favorite players to watch in the draft class. Absolutely love Sauce Gardner, and he's going to be a high draft pick. We'll see how he tests. And then I'm going to sit around and I'm going to wait to see who comes down into that second round area. There's some names that, again, like this is a pretty deep draft class. One of the things I would like to take care of in the draft, or maybe even free agency, is I feel like we still need to find a right tackle, really finish up that offensive line. So there's a couple guys that might be there. Excuse me. But I'm just looking through my list here of different players.
Well, especially at right tackle, you look at the fact that Lucas Niang is not going to play next season with that. Mm-hmm. I believe he has a broken tibia or whatever it was he had, and then I think he tore some tendons in his knee as well. Yeah, Andrew Wiley and Mike Rimmers are free agents, so I think that's a position that most people haven't paid enough attention to. But I think it's something that, you're right, man. I think they're going to have to pay attention to that one in the draft and maybe even in free agency.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna have to bring somebody in somewhere. Like probably, I imagine they'll bring in a veteran somewhere along the way. But I don't hate Lucas Niang. I was excited about him. I thought he had a lot of potential. I am concerned at this point about his durability, just because as a big man, when you have those lower body injuries, they can get really tricky. So there's some other guys just kind of down the list. So I wrote up Cameron Thomas, who's an edge defender out of San Diego State. It's so early again to tell where these guys are going to land. He could be a first rounder. He could end up being a second rounder with bad testing. A guy that I'm working on right now, Logan Hall out of Houston. Just a really intriguing. They played him mostly at defensive tackle, but he's really built more like a defensive end, and so some of that inside-outside versatility and I think Daniel Jeremiah just compared him to Marcus Davenport, which may or may not be a good thing. So you might take him some time to come along, but he's a guy that I've watched a little bit of that I'm intrigued by. I don't want to say I'm excited by, just because, there's some edge players in this class, and it just kind of depends on what you value and how they stack. Myjai Sanders is a great example out of Cincinnati. Depending on how you see him, he could be your third best or your sixth best or whatever. So we're still kind of figuring that out, and there's a lot of testing to do. But I definitely look after that cornerback in the first round. I'm going to add as much as I can in the trenches. So I also think defensive tackle is an underrated need on this team. With again, John Reed, Derek Nottie, both being free agents. You have Treshawn Wharton, but he's more of that pass rushing, 3-tech type, not necessarily your gap eater. So you're probably going to look for somebody like that. Like I said, I'm scrolling through here, looking at these different players. So this defensive tackle class is not very impressive. So that might be a free agency move, or maybe you look to keep Nottie or Reed. But if I'm going the second round, I still feel like I think it's hard because I really think that Cameron Thomas is going to climb. So I'm going to say Logan Hall out of Houston would be my second round pick. And then I'm going to assume that I keep one third rounder because I traded, like I said, we've traded up. So to give you a guy for the third round. So we've got a cornerback. We've got a defensive end. We don't necessarily need a linebacker. I think we're safe to say that we're going to, I'm probably going to double up on corner.
Now, this is hot, Tom, because our guy Brett Veach does not like drafting early corners. He doesn't spend money on corners. So I think this is a good change, man. I think that there's something to this.
Well, I really do love Brett Veach. I think that he does a lot. I can't argue with him. He's got a Super Bowl ring and I don't. So I can't really put that. There's not much of an argument I can make there. But I think. There's a couple guys. I'm just looking at some of these lists. Darren Kendrick out of Georgia. He used to be Clemson. It's kind of interesting. He's got some off the field stuff. I don't know if he'll fall that far. I'd go another corner in the third round. I'll have to dig for names, but I'd probably double up on corner because you're losing Mike Hughes, you're losing Rashad Fenton, you're losing Charvarius Ward. Like you're gonna have L'Jarius Sneed, and that's it in the secondary. Yeah. I think it's gonna be I would like to see a defensive heavy draft because this defense needs more dynamic athletes, needs younger guys, needs to have more pop to it. And I think, Lance, you tweeted it out this week, like the Chiefs were close to the bottom of the league of sacks?
29th in sacks.
29th in sacks. You don't and I understand that sacks aren't everything, pressure and affecting the quarterback. That's still part of the piece. And we were so excited about Melvin Ingram. And I think and no disrespect to Melvin Ingram. He came in and did way more than what we could. Like, that was a great value. It was a great pickup. Yeah. But that's what we were excited about.
Right.
Like, that's rough, man. That's a guy that another team gave away for a 6th-round pick. And as much as again, great value for the Chiefs, really helped the team. But they did not have a solution for that. They have to find their guy on the edge. And they don't have. They thought it was Frank Clark. It wasn't Frank Clark.
Yeah, 19 of the last 21 Super Bowl champions have a top 16 or finish top 16 in sacks. So you got to be in the top half if you want to win a Super Bowl. And I think the Chiefs overachieved as much as they could this season, being a team that was the favorites to win the Super Bowl, even though they couldn't get sacks. They got pressures. They were in the top 10 in pressures, but they just, when it comes to pressures, you got to be able to finish the job. Like you said, Chris Jones was getting there to Joe Burrow. Maybe he wasn't able to do it himself, but there was no one else back there. That's a really good point. A couple more questions, though, for you, though, Tom, because I really do want to get your thoughts on this. And this is something that we're all going to be paying attention to because there's a loyalty aspect with this team. And Andy Reid and Spags love their guys. Do you think that Daniel Sorensen and Ben Neiman are back next season?
I think that we'll move on from Ben Neiman. Hopefully. I think Daniel Sorensen is eternal. So I've embraced him as our Kansas City overlord. He is the thorn in our side, and I say all that, kind of tongue in cheek. We could talk about his play on the field, but every player who talks about him, there's so much respect for Dan in that locker room. I think that he'll retire before he gets the contract somewhere else. I think this is his place. It wouldn't surprise me if he retires in a couple years and he's on Andy Reid's coaching staff. Just because that's how he's seen as the guy who knows his stuff. He may not always be able to get to the position, but he knows where he's supposed to be. So I think if Dirty Dan still wants to play and they can make it work money wise, they'll bring him back. But and again, he's okay as a role player. Please don't give him significant starting snaps. And so when I said hey, let's replace Juan Thornhill, I guess my other idea is, so you bring in a third safety and then Juan takes that spot of Dirty Dan where, he's that third safety rotating in and you have a little less liability and coverage with him. Maybe as a young guy who, and he's on his first contract, he's going to want to try to earn some money. So he might be motivated to do that. So that's my evil master plan there at the safety position, is to make Juan Thornhill your third safety. And I think that's a pretty good third safety. And, that also means less Dan Sorensen.
Yeah, which is never a bad thing. The hype in Kansas City now that our guys like Mike Kafka are gone is, we're getting Michael Vick or Alex Smith or Chase Daniel as the next quarterback's coach. All of a sudden that became the backup quarterback position where everybody just loves that guy. And now all of a sudden the quarterback coach position matters so much. Tom, are you going to throw your hat in the ring? Are you going to, throw an application in there and see if maybe you can become the quarterback's coach? Because apparently that's the hot commodity. That's the hot job now in Kansas City.
Listen, I feel like anybody who gets paid to coach Patrick Mahomes is one lucky son of a gun. Now I'm tempted. I couldn't coach my way out of a quarterback bag. I'm a line guy, but
shoot your shot, man.
See open man throw ball. That would be it. And if it's Patrick Mahomes, I'm like, yes sir, whatever you want. I'd be his caddy more than his coach. But it's interesting to see everyone's so excited about that. I think Alex Smith would be cool, but I think he's doing his own thing, and I think that's a little optimistic. There's no need to be disappointed when it's one of the offensive quality guys or somebody who's already on the staff. I don't think we're going to lure Mike Vick into the coaching position. I think that's and I'm not sure I want Mike Vick in that position.
Right.
Just from a technical standpoint, but there's a lot that goes into. It'll be somebody that I have a feeling it'll be somebody who's already on the staff or somebody that Andy's familiar with, and we'll all go, oh, well, that's disappointing. I wanted it to be this, player who I have all these nostalgic feelings for. So.
Yeah, I was hearing people say, Priest Holmes should be the next running back. Guys, these guys, they made their careers being players. A lot of these guys aren't trying to be fringe coaches. No offense to that position. It's a great position and all, but let the guys that nobody knows get those jobs and let them earn their stripes. These other guys have already had their careers and things like that. If they want to do it, great, but I'm with you, man. I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah.
I have to ask you just because I have to ask, because we're all fans of football and we're all going to be watching. Who do you think wins Super Bowl 56?
Who do I think wins, or who do I want to win? Those two. Who do I think wins?
Give us both. Give us both.
I think the Rams are built to just stomp the Bengals. I think it's such a bad matchup for the Bengals. I feel Aaron Donald is going to feast on that offensive line. Like we might see you remember when Von Miller had that game against the Panthers? We might see that type of performance from Aaron Donald against the Bengals. Now, I do want the Bengals to win. One, so I can say, hey, my team lost to the Super Bowl champs, so it's not that bad of a loss, right? But also, I did meet so there were some Cincinnati fans right behind me in the game. And it was just one of those moments that just kind of it was bigger than the game itself. And, the Bengals fan base has been waiting a long time, just like the Chiefs had to wait for a long time. And I remember it was a mom and dad, and I think it was their 2 kids. And we talked to them throughout the game. And I was like, hey, how's Kansas City treating you? And it was very friendly and that kind of thing. They were a lot of fun. And when it was over and I turned around to just say, hey guys, congratulations, they're in tears and hugging as a family. And I don't know, for me, I was instantly rooting for the Bengals just because I didn't get their names or anything, but those people I watched a game with, and I'm like, man, I hope they get their moment too. So I want the Bengals to win. I'm not optimistic about their chances against Aaron Donald and that very stacked Rams offense. It's whatever. Yeah, we'll see how it all goes. Joe Burrow is a lot of fun to watch, and he's a fun quarterback. He's got some real confidence and some real ability. But I just think the Rams are very well equipped to shut him down. I don't think Jamar Chase and all those guys are going to run free like they have through the AFC. I think it'll be the Rams, but go Bengals. If by chance the people who were sitting would be row 22 in section 317 or 28. Yeah, they're behind us. Go Bengals. Hope you guys get your moment. But if I had to put money on it, I'd go with the Rams.
Okay, well, I like the prediction. We're going to be breaking that down next week. But this week, man, you've made this show that much better. I'm glad we finally have had you on. That is our guy, Arrowhead Tom, co-host of the Kingdom Says Pod. Real quick, Tom, before you get out of here, let the people know all about Kingdom Says Podcast, when they can find you guys, when you guys air your shows, everything you can give us about Kingdom Says.
Yeah, so we are at Kingdom Says Pod on Twitter. There you go. Obviously, my handle's at Arrowhead Tom. So we try to record twice a week. Last month or so has been crazy again with traveling and stuff. So maybe not that consistent, but we aim for twice a week during the season, and we'll be bringing lots of off-season content. Back in September, I started what we called our Kingdom Building series. My co-host Garrett Williams helped me. When I say help me, I mean he did all the graphic work. I'm awful. I had this really rudimentary spreadsheet made, but he made it look pretty. I've been covering draft prospects. I've got more of those in the pipe coming down. You'll see a lot more of those soon. So, make sure you swing by there, check out the Kingdom Building. We're going to do a lot of off-season content. And this is my favorite time of the year next to when the Chiefs are playing the Super Bowl. I love team building and looking at who could be a good fit and that type of thing. And so if you're excited for the off-season, make sure you're following us and staying tuned.
Hell yeah, man. That is our guy, Arrowhead Tom, and we're going to give him our second round of applause today because we appreciate his time and bringing everything he's got. So thank you so much, Tom. We really do appreciate you, bro. And it'd be cool with you throughout the offseason, right before the draft. We'd love to have you back on. You guys can drop your guys' list, your guys' mock drafts on the Spoken, on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever you guys want to post it. But more importantly, we'd love to have your content here back on the show soon enough, man. All right? So thank you so much for being here.
All right.
Thanks, you guys have a great day, man. Thank you so much. That is our guy, Arrowhead Tom. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did, because that guy, he has this way about him where he just calms you down. I've been on shows with him before. We've done other podcasts with third-party friends. Our guy, Corey Jones, the Artist Chief, we've been on shows with him together, and he always just seems to bring me a little bit, he brings some solace to my life, because I'm the guy that gets so worked up and fired up all the time. We need more people like Arrowhead Tom to kind of, bring it down a little bit, man. We gotta really just take a breath. I mean, it sucks what happened. He admitted that, he acknowledged it, but this team, man, they're not done. And this is what I try to emphasize on Twitter, and if you don't follow me on Twitter, I recommend it because you get my thoughts on a daily basis as to where I'm at on current things, and not to take away from anything Tom just said, but I have to emphasize on it, guys. The Chiefs did fail this season. This season was a failure. And to be honest with you even more, and this might upset a lot of you, but I have to say it because it's the truth, this run it back tour was a failure too. The Chiefs got the 4th straight AFC Championship, and that is incredible. It's historic. No other team's ever done it. We didn't pick this team to just get 4 straight AFC Championships. We picked this team to win several Super Bowls, numerous Super Bowls. This team should have been to 4 straight Super Bowls. They only got to 2, and they only won 1 of them. As much as it sucks to say, and you guys know that I am borderline homer every single week on this show, you guys know that I make all these cases for Patrick Mahomes and make all these cases for Andy Reid, make all these cases for this team. But I got to keep it real. This wasn't what I expected. I was expecting the Chiefs to be multiple Super Bowl champions in this 4-year span. I was expecting this to be a dynasty. Can and will they still get there? I do believe so. Because if we compare it to the greatest dynasty in the history of the NFL, the Patriots dynasty went 9 years in between Super Bowls, after 2004 all the way to 2013. It took them that long to win another championship. So as critical as we want to be, there's a lot of bright sides to all this. I think there's a lot to learn. Trevor and Eddie brought that up about how Patrick Mahomes is still learning the game, and there's a lot of things this team still has to do to get better and to get back to where we know them to belong. But if you look at the AFC structure, as talented and young as a lot of these quarterbacks are, if I paired them up and said, okay, do I have more confidence in Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor and this Cincinnati Bengals team who's just brand new on the block? Do I believe they're going to sustain this success over the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid? No. Do I believe that Josh Allen, although is insanely great, and Josh Allen is insanely great, they can't win close games. They're 0-6 this season in single possession games, one possession games. We've seen Josh Allen choke many, many times throughout his early career, and Sean McDermott is bad in situational football. Do I believe that team's going to take it over the Chiefs over the next 5 to 10 years? No, I don't. I genuinely don't. Do I believe Justin Herbert and the Chargers, who are 15-17 over the last 2 seasons, and not only never won a big game in his entire career to this point, but has never even made it to the playoffs? Do I believe that him and Brandon Staley are going to overcome the Chiefs for the next 5 to 10 years? And you can't sit here and make excuses for that team either. Because as we all know, we all hear all year long, people are saying, I take Justin Herbert over Patrick Mahomes. People were picking the Chargers to win this division. Even here in Kansas City, local radio hosts were picking the Chargers to win the division this year. Yeah. So I don't want to hear no excuses about, oh, they're new and they're young and they got a depleted roster. No, they don't. They're very talented on both sides of the ball. I'm not picking them over the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah. So although, again, there's a lot of young talented quarterbacks and young talented teams and head coaches, this is the best quarterback and coach tandem in the league still. So although it was a failure in all respects to what this was over the last 4 years, I still believe the next 4 years after this could be even better. It honestly could be even better. Absolutely. So, and I do have a question for Eddie. I know you have the Eddie hour, but I do have a question for you guys that I want to bring up, and it's about a streak here in Kansas City. Which streak's going to come to an end first? But let's go ahead and get to the Eddie hour. Eddie, what do you have in the Eddie hour this week? We missed it last week.
Oh, you guys did, or did you just bullshit me?
No, we actually did skip it.
Hey, all right, man. First question. So I'm sure everybody's aware about Major League Baseball and what's happening right now. We have the whole lockout thing. Mm-hmm. Do you think we're going to have a MLB season? Spring training should be, next month? Yeah. So we haven't heard anything about pitchers, catchers reporting anytime soon. Do you guys think we're going to get the season underway when it's supposed to start?
I'm glad you brought this up because I'm relieved and pissed off at the same time about baseball. As you guys all know, when it comes to baseball, I get very triggered very quickly because this is a league that is just really shooting themselves in the foot every opportunity they get. And baseball, the MLB in particular, has been notorious for lockouts and players, protesting and them having this such great divide. Because as great as the MLBPA is, the Players Association is, which it is the best in all of sports, they protect their players like unlike any other Players Association out there. They still have such a great divide. It's literally like Republicans and Democrats when it comes to the actual league and the Players Association. There's a real possibility, man, that we lose a large chunk of the season this year. a real possibility. And I'm talking like COVID style, where they only had, I think, 61 or 62 games. I could really see that because they're not close. I was listening to Jeff Passan yesterday, a guy that is as plugged in as anyone in baseball. And this dude is talking, he did not sound optimistic. And Jeff Passan is one of the most passionate, driven reporters out there. And I'm not talking just baseball, I'm talking about sports. And I did not like the tone I got from Jeff Passan. And this is a dude that's been in Kansas City for a long time too, so I've listened to a lot of his work. I don't know, man. I'm going to sit here right now and tell you that it would not shock me if we miss half of the season. I do think baseball will be played at some points because there's just too much money out there. But like Jeff Passan said in his last thing that I heard him talk about on a podcast, the problem for baseball is although it looks like the players don't have the leverage, think of it this way. No one is going to a baseball park and watching a team that is full of guys that nobody knows. Even though baseball has a hard time, for some reason, marketing their stars, they still have stars. And people want to see said stars. And if you're out there a bunch of replacement players and guys from the minors that no one knows, and guys that are clearly not ready for the game or just not good enough to be at this level, people aren't coming out to the parks. And one thing we all do know is that baseball's population and popularity, rather, is dwindling. Less and less people are going to games. Even fewer people are watching games on TV because it's a regionalized sport at this point. So baseball can't afford this because they're already third or fourth place in popularity at national or pro sports in America. So they lose an 80, 90 game schedule. I don't know if they can recover from this. I really don't. So as it currently stands, I think baseball will be played, but I don't think by any means will there be a full 162. I don't think 162 games is realistic at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to piggyback right off what you said. I don't think they can afford it. So I think they do figure something out to get maybe they might miss a little bit of spring training.
Yes.
Okay.
And we are back. So I know Trevor had his thoughts on what was going on in the MLB right now. Trevor, you wanted to continue those thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just in summary. I just think that the MLB can't afford to, extend this holdout, with the communications between the ownership and the players and so on and so forth, and they can't afford to lose more viewership, more fans, and turn more people off. So I think maybe there might be a little bit of spring training that is missed, but I think overall, I think they're going to get the league started on time, the season on time, because I just don't think after the COVID situation and the shortened season and all these things, and then losing that much revenue and all that, I just think they have a lot of making up to do in a lot of different areas. So I think it's key to get this season started on time. So I 100% believe that they will figure out a way to be prompt and be on time. So I think that's what takes place in my mind.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. Next question. All right. Let's go into UFC. So I didn't get to talk to you guys about UFC 270.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts and reactions to the whole Brandon Moreno fight with Figueiredo, and then Francis Ngannou fighting
Ciryl Gane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Trevor and I touched on this loosely last week, but I think it goes without saying that this was a very unique card, because we saw for the first time in quite some time a champion lose his belt when I don't believe the champion lost the belt, if that makes sense. Figueiredo was really, really good in this fight, and Brandon Moreno wasn't his best, but neither guy beat the other guy. I mean, I'm not a UFC expert here. Our guy, Blake Schneiders, we're going to have him on in this summertime when big UFC started coming around. I talked to him, though, and I talked to other people that I know MMA very well, and everybody was appalled by that decision to give Figueiredo the belt after that fight, because it was a very even fight. And to me, when the belt is on the line in any fighting, martial arts, boxing, whatever it is, if it's an even fight, the belt should always be retained. I don't think it should be lost. I think it should be a convincing victory. Obviously a TKO, knockout, submission, things like that, who wins. But if, let's say, Figueiredo went out there and just dominated Moreno, then you give him the belt. But he didn't dominate Moreno. And so it really upset me to see Moreno lose his belt. I think they set it up for number 4, which has never happened in the UFC, by the way. There's never been 4 matches between 2 fighters. This will be the first time it happens. And I love that. But I really hated that Brandon Moreno worked so damn hard to get this. As the first Mexican-born champion in UFC history to have it just stripped of him for a fight I don't believe he really lost. So that's my thought on that one. When it comes to the Ciryl Gane, Francis Ngannou fight, I was so, I know that fight was boring as shit, but I left that fight pumped, because going into that matchup, we all knew what Francis Ngannou was. I knock you out, or I don't knock you out and I lose kind of guy. He had 16 professional fights to that point, and all of them were knockouts. All his wins were knockouts. He finished everybody. And Ciryl Gane is like this LeBron James character, where he's this humongous freak that can move around like a welterweight. And you're like, okay, if these guys are just trading, Ciryl Gane's probably going to win this fight and get a high head kick and knock out Ngannou. So I was nervous about this one. I think I still picked Ngannou before the fight actually occurred. But then Ngannou goes out there, because he had a torn MCL, we found out. He had a torn MCL before this fight. Goes out there and just bodies Ciryl Gane. Just literally lays on him. He's like, I'm going to go George St. Pierre on your ass. I'm going to get you to the ground to score points, and I'm just going to keep you with my 200.
A couple rounds.
Yeah, but his 260-pound frame and just laid on Ciryl. And Ciryl had no energy left, so he couldn't do anything that he wanted to do. And Ngannou just dominated him with his body, with his presence. And I think that was his greatest victory of his career. As crazy as that sounds, because it wasn't exciting, he didn't knock anybody out, just won by decision. But that's his greatest win, because he had to do something that he's not only not comfortable with, but something he's not even equipped for. So I loved it. I love the versatility. I'm hearing Ngannou's probably going to go box because, let's be honest, he's not making big bucks in UFC. Yeah. So he can go get a big bank and make $30 million fighting somebody up there like a Tyson Fury, which, by the way, Tyson Fury would whoop his ass. But if that was the case, I'd still be happy for him to get his bag. But this card was unique, man, because I was equally as frustrated and equally as happy about the end result for these two big card fights.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely disappointed in the Moreno fight. I just don't think a champ should lose his belt that way. It's just kind of a championship fight etiquette. I think you just can't. In my mind, I just don't think he lost that fight. I felt it was equal. I really do. I felt that was an equal fight. I felt both fighters did what they pretty much wanted. They were both landing fights. Moreno probably didn't land as many significant strikes. But I felt it was more of a draw than anything, and I think the tie goes to the champ. And I felt like he was robbed in my mind. I don't think I don't think you should lose your belt that way. There was no established winner in my mind, and I think the champ should have just retained it, and they still could have had the fourth fight regardless. And it would have been just as exciting in my mind. I don't think they should have took his belt that way. I think he's still the true champ in my mind in that weight class, and I think he goes and gets it back with this fourth fight. And I think he feels the same way, and I think most people that watch that fight would agree. If that was just a normal fight, fine. He lost. The numbers are what they are, but the fact that was a title fight was just kind of unacceptable to me for him to lose that way. Either way, it's the nature of the beast. That's why you don't let it go to the judges. And you just go out there and win outright. But it was a good fight, though. It was very entertaining, man. It was a slugfest. Those guys were going at it. It was fun. They were both smiling at each other, and the camaraderie. You just tell those guys know each other very well. So it was fun to watch. But the Ngannou fight, man, he showed his versatility, a new form of versatility in his repertoire. Of what he can do, what he's capable of. Because we know he's the hardest hitting human being ever. He's known for his knockout power, and he was out there and went full GSP. And I was impressed. I really, really was. Those takedowns were very technically sound, honestly, and he was using his strength. A guy that big that can take you down like that is scary, man. Especially another guy that's about his equal size. And it started out, I thought he was going to lose. The first couple rounds, like, man, he doesn't look right. His knees look wobbly. He was getting chopped down. Those leg kicks and everything were pretty, vicious. So, but yeah, he can completely flip the fight upside down. After round 3, I think he started getting those takedowns, started owning them, the possession time and everything. He was just, like I said, he went full GSP. He was just destroying them on the ground and takedowns and whatnot. So definitely impressive to see that. None of us expected that. None of us knew he was hurt. None of us knew he had that MCL tear. So, I mean, that alone is impressive. They went out there and won against a very, very tough opponent. Maybe the toughest opponent that he's ever faced so far. Yeah. As far as skill set wise and power and the full package, Gane was the absolute challenger, and he went out there and beat him in an entirely different way than we expected. So kudos to him, and that was a great fight as far as what he showed that he's capable of, and he showed a new level of competency in his ability to fight different ways and win different ways. So Ngannou's building a hell of a resume, man. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And he had a fairly late start to his, mixed martial arts career. So I'm happy to see him win that way. I love him as an individual. Great human being. Absolute force. I'm excited to see what he's going to do next. If boxing is the next step, I'll definitely pay to watch that. To see that force out there with some gloves on and, going toe-to-toe, whoever it is. If it is Tyson Fury, I would definitely pick Tyson Fury just because he's more technically sound boxer and the experience. But, yeah, man, it was a good card. Definitely a good card. But I do think Moreno got robbed for sure.
I like how you brought up GSP. Don't you?
I absolutely despise GSP, but see, the thing about GSP is GSP did that. GSP did that every fight. Yes, Ngannou did this for a singular fight because you know why? He was limited, just like GSP was. So there we go.
Yeah,
how about that?
Hasn't been out there rocking people before.
Shit, he did it one time, as many times as Mayweather has.
Mayweather's considered what? The GOAT.
Oh, bullshit. Nobody considers Mayweather the GOAT.
Serious?
No way. Eddie, speak some knowledge. Speak some knowledge, Eddie.
I'm not saying I think he is, but nobody considers Mayweather the GOAT.
Anybody with two eyeballs
that work. But majority, I feel like people that consider Mayweather to be the GOAT. There's a lot of people that call him the GOAT.
I don't think so. I know a lot of boxing fans. I've never...
I don't. I'm just saying I know a lot of people that do.
I would tend to agree to that comment more than I would.
I'm not saying it's true, but there's a lot of people that
do consider. He's a good fighter overall. He is a great. He's a great boxer. It's not like He's an average boxer that just magically wins fights.
I get it, but we all know he did.
He changed his style.
He fought.
He was very much of an aggressive
right,
fighter.
but Floyd Mayweather, he capitalized on the worst generation of boxing ever, and he ducked the best competition until they were old. We all know these are facts. We all know these are facts. He got to fight. Canelo was what 19, 20 years old. Canelo was nowhere near his prime. If he fought 30-year-old Canelo would work that ass.
Was what, 23?
Yes, Canelo in his prime would have worked Floyd Mayweather. And Pacquiao was 38 years old with a torn labrum fighting.
Bro,
we all know Mayweather
does. The
does.
fact how extremely skilled Mayweather is.
I never said he's not. He has the greatest defense in the history of boxing.
That kind of matters then.
Okay, my point though is he capitalized on a horrific. I didn't say he sucked. He's not the GOAT. He's not better than Muhammad Ali. Give me a break.
He's in the conversation though.
Give me a break.
He has to be with his success. I mean, he has to be.
I love how we went from GSP.
I know it is.
I don't think Mayweather is. I don't.
This is the Spoken Podcast, people.
I definitely don't think he is, but I think he's absolutely in the argument. A lot of people think he is.
I can see why he's in the argument, but I wouldn't consider him.
No,
hell,
just the eye test alone. There's been so many better boxers.
Yes,
just for the record, his record alone, that's what gets him in the conversation. It's not.
And then he ended up becoming a sideshow. His last two fights was against McGregor and one of the Paul brothers.
Hey, dude,
like,
the dude's made more money than
and I'm not hating. The man is he's the GOAT when it comes to business.
Yeah.
The man promotes himself like a motherfucker. But come on,
businessman.
Fought Logan
come
Paul,
on,
for Christ's sake, dude. That's the worst.
All right, man. Let's go to the NBA real quick. So I'm sure you guys are very aware of the news going around. 76ers are in talks for trading for James Harden. I want to get your thoughts on that. This
is the best case scenario for both teams because James Harden has expressed in both his playing and in his press conferences that he just does not want to be in Brooklyn anymore. He doesn't enjoy the city, according to reports to very people close to him. He doesn't enjoy the city. He's absolutely sick of Kyrie Irving and this whole playing half the games and stuff. Refusing to get vaccinated. All these other things, okay? James Harden wants out of Brooklyn. It's clear as day. And he's struggling. He's having his worst season of his career since probably 2013. So it works for them. Ben Simmons gives the Nets the much-needed defense they don't have. The Nets are one of the worst defensive teams in the league, if not the worst.
Backcourt defense.
Yes, and Ben Simmons is not budging. He does not want to play for the Sixers, and the Sixers are sick of his shit too. James Harden would add so much to that offense because I guarantee you the moment James Harden goes to the Sixers is the moment that James Harden starts averaging 29, 30 points a game because him and Joel Embiid would be an awesome tandem together. I think that team could get to the finals, and I picked the Sixers, and I'm just going to stick with that, by the way. So I think this is the perfect situation for both these teams, considering the fact that both these guys do not want to be on this team. Because usually when trades occur, it's not because of two guys not wanting to be on those current teams. It's because a team's trying to get rid of one guy, and he may not be like the best guy for that team. This time it's no, both teams can't take this shit anymore. They got to swap this out. So I think this is great for both teams, and I think it'll pay dividends for both.
I don't know if it happens though, because it is in the East. I think if they're going to trade him, they would want to trade him out West. The Kings were definitely in talks. I will say that the Kings were in talks of packaging a bunch of picks and Tyrese Halliburton and a couple other players to get Ben Simmons. And I really wanted Ben Simmons on the Kings. I think him and De'Aaron Fox would be a great defensive duo on the backcourt there. But
I read somewhere that the Kings were not pursuing Ben Simmons anymore.
Well, it's dead now. But I'm saying they were packaging things and they were in talks. But I don't know. There's just so much in flux with this Ben Simmons thing. Like I don't really know who has the leverage. Really, there's not. It's just a strange scenario. He's honestly sabotaging himself because he's. I know he's still so young. He has a lot of basketball to play. This might be the best opportunity though. So I will say it definitely could happen. I'm not gonna say it won't. But trading him to the Nets directly conflicts with what they're trying to do. Because if Harden goes to Philly and they succeed and they hit the stride and that becomes something, and then they maybe take them out in the playoffs or something, that would be something that would haunt them, So it definitely can happen. Ben Simmons has got to go somewhere. I think it is a very good fit for Brooklyn if this does happen. So just say this happens. I think it's a great fit for both sides. I think both sides win. I think Philly gets that other scorer that they desperately need alongside Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid has been playing outside of his goddamn mind. Him and Jokic are honestly, statistically, two of the best forces in this league. Both those guys are playing premier, top tier basketball right now, so they're fun to watch. But Embiid does need that secondary option, that elite secondary option with putting the ball in the basket. And James Harden is that, and he still has much more left in his game and his tank. But Ben Simmons would definitely fit right alongside KD and Kyrie whenever he does play. Defensively, that's definitely a glaring need for the Nets. They have all the offense in the world, but defensively they are lacking, and Ben Simmons is arguably the best defensive player in the league when healthy and when playing and on his level. So as a basketball fan, yeah, I think I'd like to see it happen, honestly. I think that would be good. The East, that would definitely shake some things in the East. That would definitely give Philly an edge because Ben Simmons isn't playing for Philly. You know what I mean? So they'd be getting a body that's out there actually playing basketball, which would be nice for them. So it automatically it's a bit more of a win in Philly's. To me, for Philly, it's more of a win because they're getting someone to go out there and play basketball, right? Because Ben Simmons is just holding them hostage right now. So both teams would win here, but I think that helps the Philly much more because they're actually getting someone to play basketball. Because Harden is still playing basketball for the Nets, night in, night out. Ben Simmons is not playing basketball for Philly. So it immensely helps the Sixers that much more. And that would Harden, and that's what I thought before he went to the Nets. I thought Harden was going to go to Philly. They were already in talks. I thought that was going to be a great duo.
Daryl Morey and his relationship.
Right. So that would be he would immediately fit right in. And I think, absolutely, I'm with Lance on that. I think they would definitely be a threat and a contender immediately with James Harden, as long as he stays healthy, as long as he can continue his game. He's been playing well this year. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a trade that should happen. I don't really know who else. There's been so many different packages that teams have been trying to put together because Ben Simmons is definitely a player that any team could use, any team would want. So hopefully they get it done just so we can stop talking about it. It's getting annoying at this point.
That's the NBA struggling with already, man. Is the only storylines they really have are dramatic, stupid, useless, childish storylines. The NBA is struggling this year.
Yeah, that's true.
I like what somebody said on Facebook. Trade James Harden back to OKC, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, so you take your ass to the first round of the playoffs.
So then that's just gonna get a bunch of draft picks out of that. Like I think the Nets are trying to win now.
So you can go choke for your ass.
I think the Nets are trying to win now.
Come back home, buddy. Come back home.
Yeah, I will say that Giddy kid is nice though. I like that kid, man. He's a baller.
He's hurt. He's out for 2 weeks, I believe.
They got some good young players on that team, I will say.
All right, stay in basketball. So, with less than 30 games left in the NBA season, what can you take away from the 50-plus games that have been played so far?
I think the fact I shouldn't have been so dismissive about this NBA season because there are some positives. The Phoenix Suns have been unbelievable. They've had two, 12 or 13 game winning streaks this season, which is
they're the best
great.
team in the NBA right now.
Yeah, they're the best team. They go 9 deep. That's a very good team. They should be right now penciled in as the favorites out of the West. Another story that I love is the Warriors are 40-13. And they're an experimental team. They have a bunch of young guys that haven't even figured out who they are yet.
Still have the core, though.
I get it. My point, though, is Klay just got back less than a month ago. He missed like 13 or 14 games. Steph had a horrific stretch. He was shooting like 23% from three. And then he had another amazing stretch. Yeah. Meanwhile, Steve Kerr, I think he should win Coach of the Year this year because this team, I didn't expect really a lot from this team at all this year. I was saying they should trade Steph Curry, as crazy as that sounded, but I thought they should have capitalized on what he still is. And then also the Bucks. They have literally been sleepwalking this entire season, and they're probably still going to get the 1 seed in the East and probably repeat as champions because that's the best team in the NBA, in my opinion, outside of the Suns. And Giannis is the best player in the world outside of LeBron James when healthy. So I think the first 50 or 60 games of the season has shown us that there are no dynasties right now. There's no budding dynasties right now outside of maybe the Bucks. If they repeat, then all of a sudden we're talking dynasty. But I think we're seeing a real, kind of like in the NFL, where there is this true changing of the guard. I think that's happening in the NBA. I think you're starting to see a lot of these young bucks that have just been considered young bucks because a guy a team I'd even mention, Ja Morant and the Grizzlies, a team that I think is a legitimate contender at this point. Ja Morant, who's becoming an elite player in this league quickly. He's like 21, 22 years old.
Dude, they have the 4th best record in the NBA.
Yes, it's insane. We're seeing a changing of the guard here. I think LeBron's got another couple really good seasons left in him, but the Lakers right now are not a contender. So that makes him irrelevant in a lot of ways. He's also injured again. So we're seeing a lot of 20-something guys being the focal point of the league. It's not something we're used to. We're so used to having our Kobes and Duncans and Shaqs and LeBrons and AIs, these guys that we grew up watching. Those guys are going away. Like our guy Nick Wright said, Carmelo Anthony right now I think averages the 5th most points for a player in year 19 or later in the history of the NBA, and he's not very good right now. He's averaging like 13, 14 points a game. Exactly. Yeah. So, like, that's the highlight of the old guys right now, is that he's a backup player who's banged up, averaging less than 15 points a game. That's where we're at, man. We're starting to see these young stars emerge. So, if anything, the positive side of things, that's what it's showing me. On the flip side of what I said earlier.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of strange things that have gone there. This has been an odd season. It hasn't really had a
in a
legit
good way or in a bad way?
Good and bad. There's been good and bad. I think one of the biggest shocks of this season no one's really talking about is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're 3rd in the East. You know what I mean?
That's nuts.
They're 3rd in the East. They have a better record than the Bucks. You know what I mean? Like, no one's really talking about them. I mean, they have that Garland kid. They have a couple other players. They got they have some good bigs. But I mean, a lot of young, inexperienced players, but they continue to win games, and it's strange. Like it's strange. Like they have 32 wins.
Yeah.
Well, they have the same exact record as the Bucks. But still, that's one thing I think a lot of people aren't talking about. Granted, playoff time comes around, they're probably going to get swept just because of the inexperience and the coaching, and I mean, Kevin Love is a rotational guy there still. Like a lot of these things are just not. But they do have some young. That could be a bright future there for Cleveland. I'm just kind of been keeping an eye on that all year. They just continue to win. But yeah, Memphis also, as far as the West goes, they've been the story. Ja Morant is an absolute superstar in my mind. He looks like the young and even better version of Russell Westbrook. He reminded me a lot of Russell Westbrook when he came in the league, but he's got better leadership skills in my mind than Russell Westbrook does, because he knows how to perform in clutch moments. He knows how to find. He just knows how to make the right plays, and he's a better scorer, better shooter, better scorer overall than Russ. But he has that same kind of motor.
Yeah,
fun to watch, man. But yeah, Phoenix and Golden State, they're definitely fighting, tooth and nail for that top spot in the West. Those are the two best teams in the league in my mind. The two top teams in the West. But yeah, I mean, this is the Miami Heat are still definitely, and the Chicago Bulls number 1 in the East. You know what I mean? Like, this has been Chicago Bulls ain't playing around. That team they built over there has been real since the jump of this season. They're very skilled. Caruso being a great addition defensively, great motor guy. I miss that guy on the Lakers roster. He was huge for the Lakers down the stretch on that championship run. Yeah, man, there's a lot of things. The Lakers definitely got to get it together. I will say, though, Anthony Davis, since he's been back, has been playing out of his mind. I don't know if you guys have been watching AD lately.
Yeah.
He's been having he's been playing his best basketball of the year so far. He's been playing incredible, and they've been winning games and finally kind of starting to get back on tracks, because this team, granted, as great as LeBron is, he needs help, right? LeBron's having one of his best years of his career at age 37, which is so insane. He's gonna be the all-time leading scorer here soon, but AD, this team moves as AD moves, because they need him on that defensive end. They need him on the offensive end. He's that mismatch player that they need just to perform on a nightly basis. And the AD's finally starting to play with. So I think they could, they're a game under 500, or 3 games under 500, I should say. So 25 and 28, they got to get it together. They got to make this push here for the, for this last stretch.
They've lost 3 of the last 4. So
yeah. Right. I know, man. They're not playing good basketball, but I still think the Lakers find a way to get at least to the 8th seed and get into the playoffs. With that, anything can go. But yeah, man, this season's been strange. Utah is always a team that's in talks in the West. Dallas has been up and down. A lot of teams have been up and down this year, but one thing that's held true is that the top teams in the East and the top teams in the West have kind of been those top teams all year. So Chicago's been tops, Warriors and Suns. I think it's going to be an interesting playoff run once the playoffs. My Kings still suck. You know what I mean? So we continue to lose games. We find ways to lose. We were playing good defense at the beginning of the year. Now we're one of the worst defenses. It's just.
And you guys just traded players, didn't you guys?
Not yet. We were looking at making moves, but I don't think anyone wants to touch us with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, anybody coming from the Kings like, yeah. I think honestly, the Buddy Hield move to the Lakers would have been great for the Lakers, but they didn't pull the trigger on that and get that done. So. I'm interested to see though what this trade deadline coming up, what moves are made. If that Harden thing does take place, if the Kings make any move, the Lakers. I think the Lakers gotta make some kind of move. If they want to have any hope. I mean, I think this roster is just too old and slow in my mind, and the league's kind of passing them up with a lot of these young, faster players. But playoff time comes around. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to what trade acquisitions are done per team, what moves are made. I know Indiana Pacers are looking to burn the house down. So they're still wanting to ship off all of their talent and blow it up. So I think Sabonis and LeVert and a lot of those guys could get moved around, and those are very valuable players. I think the Lakers could definitely use one of those guys. But overall, man, it's been there's been a lot of parity in the NBA this year. it's a lot of tight records in these divisions. So it's been a competitive year, similar to honestly the football season this year. You know, this was a very odd football season this year. The Chiefs started slow. We were last in the division for a couple weeks. Yeah, and then they got beat by Joe. You know, like a lot of things were weird. I mean, the Jaguars absolutely destroyed and owned the Bills in that game. Yeah. There was a lot of weird games.
The fucking Saints.
The Jets were out there. Mike White, a guy named Mike White, was out there winning games for the Jets this year. There's a lot of strange
Tom Brady
shit.
scored 0 points for the first time in years.
Yeah, Saints shut his ass down. I mean, yeah, man. So. That's it's weird. Like, it's a similar vibe with the NBA this year. It's like a lot of parity, which I like. It's more competitive, and no one's like the outright just dog. I think the Suns are the best team in the NBA, but it's not like far outright the best team. The Warriors are right behind them. You got to believe in the Bucks, of course. The Nets, if they make a move and get Ben Simmons, that's a force. You know, if Philly gets James Harden, that's a force. That can shake things up. So, I think the NBA playoffs are gonna be really fun this year. Actually, I think there's a lot of matchups that are gonna be competitive. You know what I mean? So, and then like I said, I started my rant off here with the Cleveland Cavaliers, you know, third in the East. You know what I mean? One of the top 5 teams in this league. They're a top 5 team in the league right now, record-wise. You know, so this is weird. Yeah, and then the Grizzlies, top 4 record. You know, like these two teams that no one really expected to be great, they're tops in the league. So a lot of parity in the NBA season. I'm looking forward to the playoffs for sure.
All right, let's go NFL real quick. 2 questions. So, obviously, I brought up Tom Brady. Wanted to get your reactions to the official retirement of Tom Brady.
I feel bad for Tom because the fact that I feel that somebody that has put as much as he has into this league and into his own body and sacrificed as much as he has, I don't mean to make him sound like a victim, but it's the truth. He deserved to go out the way he wanted to, which is to make the official announcement himself. And the unfortunate side of the world we live in is we live in a place where people want to get it first. And I think that what happened is that somebody that knew Tom and knew him well enough to where he felt comfortable enough to let them know ahead of time, hey, I'm gonna retire. They let these reporters know that, and these reporters have a job, and it's to report the news. And when they get a scoop, they're going to report it. So I'm not mad at the reporters for what they did. I'm upset at the situation. But now that I've addressed that, I think this is the right call because I think Tom is ready for it. I've always said, this is the key thing that I've always said, that as long as you feel you're good enough and you want to still do it and someone else believes you're good enough to still do it and want to pay you to do it, you should keep doing it. Well, I think that Tom is still good enough to do it, but I think that he realizes that there are going to be things that he's already missed out on and will continue to miss out on if he continues his career that he won't ever get back. And that's time with his kids.
Yeah.
And that's just, I'm not a father, but Trevor is. And Eddie, you and I, we all come from big families. And we know that stuff matters. And I think that Tom is finally starting to realize that, and it probably made it easier knowing the Buccaneers had this short window of time to really contend. And I think he saw the writing was on the wall and that the league is really starting to pass the torch.
They got a ring, man.
To other guys. Yeah, and he had nothing left to prove. He won outside of the Belichick umbrella, which was something that I think that given the scenario of the Patriots wanting to get rid of him finally, I think he wanted to go out there and prove he can win without Belichick, and he did just that. There's nothing left to prove. There's nothing left to accomplish. I think Tom did everything he set out to do, and now he deserves to go out there and enjoy his kids and enjoy his family, reap the benefits of being the most successful player in the history of the NFL, and I'm happy for him. I think that seeing a life like that lived and led is something you should admire, you should respect, and that's something I'm going to respect. And I know he's going to miss his favorite teammates, which were in the pinstriped uniforms known as the officials. He's going to miss those guys because those guys made his life a lot easier.
He might become one.
But he's an ambassador of the game. The man has done nothing but respect this game. He seems like a great guy. Everybody loves the dude. So I'm happy for him, man. I think he lived an ultimate life, the luckiest son of a bitch that has ever played sports. And I'm happy for him. So congratulations to a great career, and I hope he enjoys his retirement.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the last we're going to see of Tom. We're going to see Tom's face, and he's probably going to do things with Peyton Manning. Him and Peyton Manning are buddies, and those two charismatic guys that are two, funny individuals. I think they both got great personalities. I'm sure we're going to see them, and maybe possibly even Drew Brees, that whole era of guys. They're all very close. They battled each other a lot throughout their career. So I think we're going to see his personality all over the NFL and sports talk and whatever. He's got it. I like Tom as an individual. I think he's a funny guy. I think especially over the years. I think he's evolved as to being more of a kind of embracing his geekiness and his goofiness. I kind of like it. I've liked that as the years have gone on, especially the last few years as of late. But I mean, he was the villain, man, my whole life. It was Tom Brady was the villain. I couldn't stand the guy. Couldn't stand anything about him. I felt like he got lucky a lot of times. Granted, his resume is what it is. There was a lot of controversy within his career that definitely turned a lot of people against him and turned a lot of people off and second guessed a lot of his success. And I have to keep moving him away from it. He bumps into it. You're good.
And we are back. So we've had some technical difficulties. We apologize for that. We appreciate you guys hanging tough. I believe Trevor was in his thought again in regards to the So go ahead.
Cut me off, man.
Tom Brady, you're getting more praise here. Here's an additional deluxe edition.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to it. Great career, success. It is going to be weird not having Tom Brady. I will say that it is going to be weird not having Tom Brady in the football field on a weekly basis. It is going to be strange. I have to find somebody new to hate. So, yeah, I mean, kudos to him, man. I know he didn't get to put it out the way he wanted to. I felt like he was definitely given out there prematurely. That's unacceptable, honestly, for him to go through what he went through and have the career he had and not be able to go out on his terms and say it when he wanted to. That's kind of messed up in my personal opinion. So, look, man, this next chapter of his life, I'm sure he's going to be even greater at it. He seems like a great dad. He's a great husband. Obviously, he's had a long marriage, which is longer than most, so he's doing well. He's going to have a long, successful life with his family, and I'm looking forward to seeing that new chapter. I'm looking forward to see his contributions to, maybe analyzing football, just with his voice and his knowledge of the game. So similar to what Peyton Manning does. So I'm looking forward to see this next chapter. But man, look, so long, right after the sunset. You got your other ring. Congratulations, man, the most successful athlete of all time.
Do you think he'll be a coach in this league?
No. Guys like him are too, I hate to say this, but it's the truth, they're bigger than the game. It's like Kobe Bryant or LeBron. You saw like Magic Johnson do that one time with the Lakers, and it just didn't go well because also you have to factor in that there's legacies at stake. And you see guys like John Elway, who is revered and loved in Denver. But what he hasn't done in Denver as far as a VP and president of operations, that tarnishes his legacy. And I don't think guys like Tom Brady would want to ever risk that. That's why guys like Derek Jeter, who are in the front office are in other franchises. They're with the Marlins. He's not with the Yankees because let's say he gets Brian Castron's job as the GM of the Yankees and they suck. People are always going to go, yeah, Derek was a great player, but fuck, he was a terrible GM. You know, like, they don't want that attachment. So I don't think Tom Brady and guys like that would ever put themselves in that position. Do they feel confident that they can do a great job? Yes, because they're just great competitors. But it's a different type of competition and a different skill set that's required. And when you're that great at something, you will automatically think that the people you're hiring to do that same job you once did, they should be able to do it to that level. And that's what makes you special, is that you can do it in a way that others couldn't. So it's kind of a rock and a hard place for you to put yourself in that situation. So I don't think that Tom Brady would ever even entertain the thought of being a coach or any type of exec or anything like that, at least in the time being.
So coach?
Yeah.
No. I just don't think he's that guy. I just don't think that's something he would even want to do. I think especially imagine him having this long ass career as a quarterback and his wife bearing through all that. And then him telling you, yeah, I'm going to jump back in this game. I'm going to be your coach for the next 20 years.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
That's probably something that would be the last. I think he's going to want to sit back and ride around on his yacht and enjoy his time with his family and his kids and help raise them, you know, into being the men he wants them to be. And, you know, I think he's just going to enjoy this, man. Like, granted, losing the identity as a player is something that's going to probably be challenging for him.
Yeah.
You know, losing that competitive edge every week. That's something it's an addictive thing. So
professional guys.
yeah. So now he's probably gonna be. I don't know. Who knows what he's gonna do in this? I'm pretty sure he's gonna still do something sports related. I expect his personality still to be around sports and his voice to be heard. So coaching is. I doubt he would ever want to jump back because coaching is even more than a quarterback. You know what I mean? That never stops. You know what I mean? There's no real off season for coaches. So no, I don't see that happening.
You know, for me, like the words of a wise man once said, Tom Edward Patrick Brady for president.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no.
We don't talk pale raisin around here, all right? We don't talk Skip Bayless.
Yikes. Yeah.
All right, man. The last question. I saved this for last because I guess the biggest one. So I want to talk about the whole Brian Flores allegations lawsuit against the NFL. I want to get your thoughts. I want to get your reactions. What do you think could potentially be the outcome of this and stuff like that?
I'm glad this is finally brought up on the show because we've had a lot to talk about. But to give you as candid of a response as possible, I think what Brian Flores is simply doing is pulling down the curtain and exposing to what I think we all kind of feared what was going on and what we all could kind of see already. It's the fact that minorities are still not treated with the same respect or given the same standard and opportunity that white coaches and white executives are given. Something that I know other people like Nick Wright and other people have said before that I think is the perfect analogy is looking at across leagues. Look at the NHL. Over 85%, 90% of the players, actually probably more than that, are white players in the NHL. But could you imagine if only 3% of their managers or coaches were white? Imagine 97% of coaches in the NHL being black and 100% of the owners being black. But 80, 90, 95% of the players are white. Wouldn't that be a little odd to you? And it's virtually impossible for us to have this same scenario on the flip side in the NFL. It's impossible. It has to be intentional in some regard because you can't tell me that a league that is comprised of 70% black players and black athletes throughout time, not just currently, but throughout the last 10 to 20 years, can have 0 owners that are black. I think there's only, 2 GMs in the NFL, 2 or 3 GMs in the entire NFL that are black. And then 1 head coach that is black. I don't know if you guys knew this, but if Eric Bieniemy doesn't get this job with the Saints, or let's say he doesn't get a head coaching job at all, that would be 29 different interviews that he didn't get the job for, 22 different teams, and 7 of those teams would have passed on him twice. I don't know white coaches that go through that. And I don't see coaches like Jim Caldwell, who had back-to-back winning seasons with the Lions, who got fired and hasn't gotten a job. I've never seen a white coach go through something like that. Brian Flores may have sacrificed his career which I don't think is actually going to happen. I think he's going to coach again in this league because that would be too on the nose for the NFL to basically blackball him if that in fact happened. But Brian Flores is doing this for other people, not himself. Yes, his situation is shitty where John Elway and other people like that with the Broncos organization didn't take his interview seriously, and they're all denying it. Yes, the Giants hired Brian Daboll, or at least planning to hire Brian Daboll before they even had their interview with Brian Flores, which clearly was just to keep the Rooney Rule intact.
Right.
But he wasn't doing this just for himself because, again, he stood up for Eric Bieniemy. He broke down a 58-page lawsuit for other coaches in this league throughout time that haven't gotten fair or equal value from other coaches. And, again, I listened to several players throughout the league, black players, that have said this, and I stand firm with this. It's not about making sure that black coaches get to be black head coaches or that we got to make sure they get that job. It's about letting the best man get the job. Mm-hmm. And you can't tell me that guys like Josh McDaniels, who had 11 and 20, what was it, like 11 and 17 record with the Broncos,
that wasn't good.
Left the Colts on red and changed his decision last second and goes back to the Patriots. He's more of a worthy candidate than Eric Bieniemy or Byron Leftwich.
And then you got to add Josh McCown.
And then you got to add Josh McCown, who is a quarterbacks coach in high school, who has zero college or pro level college experience, is getting second and third interviews with the Texans over guys like Brian Flores. It's clear as day. And what's funny about all this is that Brian Flores brings this out. 2 hours later, Peter King calls out the NFL because the NFL is claiming there's zero merit to his accusations. Yet Roger Goodell today is sitting here talking about, well, the league's got to do better. We got to make a better effort. If there's no merit to it, why are you sitting out here saying that the NFL's got to do better? If the NFL's already doing better and if things are fine and Brian Flores is full of shit, why are you even bothering? There is a real problem here. And like I said before the show, we were sitting here talking pre-gaming, good thing the NFL has such a great product. Because if they didn't, they'd be where the MLB is right now, where people are getting disinterested. Hell, even casual fans that we know have been texting us and going, man, if this is true, I don't know how much I'm going to watch. Now, maybe that might not be true, but maybe it will be true because the casual fans are the ones the NFL is targeting. Us loyal people, us diehards, we're going to be around no matter what. But if you're not going to have more of a conviction and more of a standard in place to where the best man gets the job regardless of what he looks like, you are going to lose viewership. And that is where the NFL is really going to start paying attention. That is when it's going to happen. That's why Roger Goodell is out here saying the things he's saying, because he knows that this is starting to get out there on national landscapes, not just within NFL circles. People that don't watch the NFL as closely, who just kind of casually view it, are talking about this now. That's when it becomes a problem for the NFL. That's why it's a problem now for the NFL. So I salute Brian Flores for what he's doing, because he's doing something that is far greater than his own self, and one day it's probably going to be a movie. We're going to have several books written about him. He's already done his tour, his national circuit tour, where he's going on all these shows and just whistleblowing. Yeah. And I love it, because this is what we need, man, because if this doesn't happen, this shit's going to continue to happen. And it may still continue to happen, but at least it's being spoken about, and it's being brought out and put into the light that these people deserve to get jobs. Like I said just a week ago with our guy Mark Gunnels, what more could Eric Bieniemy do? He's been the OC for this team in Kansas City for the last 4 years, and not just for the last 4 years, the greatest 4-year stretch in the history of the Chiefs. What more could he do to get a job? If he doesn't get a job, there's nothing more you can say. It's a real problem, and I'm glad that Brian Flores has done what he's done to bring it to light, and it never should have had to come to this, to where he almost sacrifices his career at 40 years old just to bring it to light.
Yeah, he might have sabotaged his career in coaching from here on out because of what the sacrifices he's making. So, so kudos to him, man. Fully support what he's saying, fully support, the idea of even investigating this and looking into this, and he's getting support from other ex-coaches, and coming out and talking about, them being paid to throw games and lose games, incentivize losses. So who knows what's going to come of this? But I will say, man, the fact that BME has had 20-plus interviews kind of helps my belief that we have evolved from the Rooney Rule. I think the Rooney Rule should go away at this point. I believe that it was the origin of it was to help minority coaches get a chance, but now what it's done disgustingly has done is it's created minority coaches as a prop. It's made them into a prop. It's made them into these guys that circulate and get their interviews just so they can get them in and say that they interviewed an African-American or a minority coach just so they can say they did it, you know. Decisions already being made on who they're going with before they even interview them, but just so they can say that they interviewed the minority coach. It's become a prop, and it's embarrassing. It's kind of gross. It leaves a gross feeling in your stomach. And yes, the NFL does have a great product. The product that is built on the backs of African American players and minority players. For the majority of players are minorities. So it's just, man. I mean, this is something we've just, this is a talking point we've had for a long time on this podcast and in us individually off camera. So this is something that's not new to us. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, I mean, if I feel that Bieniemy deserves this job, I honestly, I really, really hope he gets the job in New Orleans. I thought that'd be a good fit for him. I think he'd do good things over there. There's a lot of work needs to be done in that franchise, but it is what it is. But as far as Brian Flores goes, I mean, he's just has the balls to speak on things that we've known for a while. You know what I mean? And he's getting the support from other coaches and players that haven't been able to speak out about it. Maybe they didn't feel they had a voice or a strong enough backing. This just takes balls. This takes balls, man. And I think the falling out in Miami is definitely what boosted him. And then obviously the cup was overflowing after the text from Belichick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm glad that text exchange happened. I'm glad Belichick's fucked up. It is what it is. So there's not much I can say to because nothing's set in stone yet. There's a lot of information still to come out. A lot of investigations to be done. I can just hope that the morale of individuals, they choose to make the right decisions. They choose to put the right information out, and the right result is what to come of it. So that's all I can hope, man. Really, that's all I can hope. It's the best.
That's all I got.
I actually have a question I want to present to you guys because this is kind of just popped up to me in the middle of the show today because we're talking about the streak that the Chiefs are currently on and how the Patrick Mahomes era, they don't know anything but at least getting to the AFC Championship. And then for the last 6 years, Travis Kelce's had at least 1,000 yards every single season. I want to start with you, Eddie, because obviously Trevor's preoccupied right now. But which streak do you think comes to an end quicker? Is it going to be Travis Kelce's 1,000-yard seasons or the Chiefs getting to the AFC Championship?
I don't think you're gonna like this answer, but I think both are coming into an end at the same time. I do feel like Travis Kelce's not getting any younger. This season we saw him struggle a little bit more out there on the field. He was getting a little bit more banged up. Obviously, he was out there fighting for his team, but we did see Travis Kelce starting to show those signs of being that veteran, being that getting up there in age. So, like I said, Travis Kelce's not going to get any younger. And I do think the Chiefs, with the kind of, not rebuild or anything like that, they're still going to be a great team, but the amount of pressure that they're going to receive from not just this, obviously, Bengals loss, but in overall, in general, I think the amount of pressure, it's just the expectations are always too high. I don't know if they're going to... This year, they showed that they couldn't handle the pressure in the AFC Championship game. Obviously, they did pretty bad when the pressure started mounting on them, when everything started going wrong. So I do think, but it's nothing alarming, though. It's not like I'm saying the Chiefs are going to suck for another 50 years. No. We're going to have those years where we're probably not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean the Chiefs are a horrible, terrible team. It just means the situation wasn't there for us. But I do think they could potentially both come to an end here pretty soon, and I do think it will be both of them.
Okay. So the proposition came to me in the middle of the show. Which streak do you think ends first? Travis Kelce's 1,000-yard streak or the Chiefs' AFC Championship streak?
As far as appearance, AFC Championship appearance?
Yeah, just appearances. I know they've been hosting them, but just getting to them is obviously the streak that we focus on.
Because we have 4 streaks.
I'm going to say the 1,000 yards, but I don't see, as long as Patrick, and I know you said there's going to be seasons where we miss the playoffs. I disagree. I think as long as Patrick Mahomes is here and we're healthy and we have a healthy roster, it's going to be really hard for me to believe that we're going to entirely miss the playoffs. That's going to be hard for me to believe. That's just one thing. But Yeah, I think I would say I mean, that is
a tough question.
Because I think, regardless of, we can talk about Kelsey's age, he hasn't really missed a step, though. We can be honest. He's just gotten smarter, and he's honestly better because of it.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
But like I told Lance, like this year we saw a little bit more of Travis Kelce getting roughed up a little bit more, taking a little bit longer to come back.
I mean, he's still.
That's what I said. I said that he still fought for his team, which is greatly appreciated from Travis.
I just tweeted it out on our Twitter page, so I'll see what we get on that.
I think it would be because, dude, I mean, what he's already done at the tight end position with the amount of 1,000-yard seasons he's strung along here in this record is insane.
Yeah.
And to expect that to continue is just completely unrealistic. Shit, what he's done right now in the last few years is absolutely unrealistic. Right? It's unprecedented what he's done in that position. He's completely revolutionized that position. Everyone's trying to find the next Travis Kelce now, just like everyone's trying to find the next Patrick Mahomes. Right? Exactly. So the thing that the trio that we put together here is absolutely an unprecedented trio. It's the greatest trio ever. I would say, though, I mean, that's got to come down eventually. Maybe he'll get 850 to 900 yards. You know, stringing along a 1,000-yard season at that position is insane. What he's done in his career is crazy. Yeah, man, and staying healthy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Going through, being the number one target in this offense and staying healthy that long and getting banged up, taking these hits, throwing these nasty blocks every play. And the fact that he's been able to remain healthy since his first year in the NFL is insane. But I do think, I would say, I would still 100% take our chances of being in the AFC Championship again before he would reach 1,000 yards again. I'm not saying that he couldn't do it. I'm saying if I had to choose one, it would definitely be, I think we would make the AFC Championship again before Travis Kelce gets another 1,000-yard season. But shit, they could both happen again next year, bro. You know what I mean? So
that's what I'm saying, bro.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question.
I feel like
thought-provoking,
both
but
are coming, yeah.
Yeah, if I had to pick one not to happen, it'd be the fact that he would add yet another 1,000-yard year.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing. If we lose in a divisional playoff game next year, it's not the end of the world.
Shit.
Obviously, our expectations are Super Bowl wins every year.
All I care about is touchdowns.
But that is unrealistic.
So, you can have the yards all you want, but as long as if he's getting double-digit touchdowns, that's all I care about.
You mentioned the Patriots. They went 9 years without a title.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the expectations are always going to be so high, but
they're going through rebuilds. Every team's going to go through rebuilds.
The rebuilds. Travis Kelce's getting old.
But those Patriots teams are still making the playoffs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So, should they made the playoffs with Matt Castle and Tom Brady got hurt?
I guess I can see the Chiefs missing the playoffs only if Patrick Mahomes misses a season.
That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. As long as Patrick Mahomes is here, I don't see us going a season where we miss the playoffs.
Yeah, but I think both streaks could come to an end here very, very, very soon.
I will say though, I mean, the AFC is going to be loaded this next decade, man. So the quarterback talent, and if Aaron Rodgers makes his way over here, shit, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. But I would say I would bank on us making the AFC Championship game again before Travis Kelce hits 1,000.
That's
What's your?
Glad you're asking, because I was going to tell you anyway. I think it's Travis Kelce's streak, and the reason why is because everything you both mentioned. It is the more realistic decline because the Chiefs, even as they lost that, I mean, we're talking about a singular half of football that is now making recency bias at an all-time high. We're pretending as if this Chiefs team hasn't won the most games in the regular season since 2018, most playoff appearances, most playoff games, most playoff wins, most Super Bowl appearances, second most, or tied for first Super Bowl wins, obviously. So, look, I understand that people. I've said it myself, even on this episode, that it's not easy, and you can't assume that it's going to happen every single year. But with the things in place for the Chiefs, there is a much greater chance that the Chiefs are at least back in the AFC Championship next year than for Travis Kelce to add a seventh consecutive 1,000-yard season, because we don't understand just how difficult that is, because we're talking about an individual. A team can achieve so much stuff. A player, it's so much more difficult for them to add that on a consecutive basis, not just because he's aging. And honestly, that's not the part that worries me. To me, it's about the Chiefs are going to add so much to this team next season, and I think they're going to get themselves a legitimate wide receiver 1 as their wide receiver 2. And I think you're going to start to see that guy take a little bit from Travis Kelce. And to be honest with you, if I know that Travis Kelce can be fresh for the playoffs, I would be willing to say, you know what, if I got to push a button that said I can guarantee that Travis Kelce is healthy for the playoffs, but he finishes short of the 1,000 yards, or you roll with it and let him get the 1,000 yards and we'll see where his health is, I would push door number 1. Because Travis Kelce at this point is built for the playoffs. Yeah. Keep him for the playoffs. The regular season, obviously you want to see him get his numbers.
I think that's his mindset too.
But you got to transition to let's make sure he's healthy for the playoffs, because you're right, Eddie. This dude gets manhandled every freaking week, and it drives me up a freaking wall that he doesn't get the calls, man. Yeah. He gets Shaq treatment. I was talking to the guys over at Chief Concerns. We were DMing one day, and I was talking to Dash, their host, and him and I were talking about that. I said, I feel like Travis Kelce gets the Shaq treatment, where they know he's so dominant, they know he's so much bigger than the guys that are opposing him, that they let him get beat up to keep the playing field a little even. I think that's bullshit. I think you should call it even. You see a hand on him, you see a dude checking him, you need to be calling that shit, and they don't, and it's unfortunate. And I hope that isn't something that tapers off Kelce's ability to stay healthy as he ages, because he will be 32 this upcoming October. So he's not old, but he's not young anymore. He's in that middle area.
Especially
So
as a tight end.
yeah,
I think he's at his best right now, though. I think he's so smart. I mean, dude, look at the evolution. Before, we've listened to Mike. I've listened to Mike Up of Travis Kelce since he started in this career. He's always fun to listen to. He's a character. But the latest one in that Bills game, where he was like, hey, he was like talking about, hey, this is going to happen. This guy, he called his shot twice.
He's seen every defense out there.
He's the reason that those things happen. He threw that block for Tyreek for us to get in field goal range, and he called his seam shot, and Patrick Mahomes trusted him, and he did exactly and called his shot. That's an evolution of a smart player, and that is what extends careers, right? So he's obviously lost a step in his athleticism. Granted, he had one of his best after the catch runs in the season. Yeah. Who was that? Was 75-yard play or whatever? It was insane. He outran all the cornerbacks. He's still got that juice when he needs it. Yes. But at the same time, a consistent basis. He's not as spry as he used to be, and I will say that. But intelligence is huge, man. You know what I mean? Like, that is a huge thing. Skill players, obviously, is down to quarterback. Quarterbacks, obviously, now can play into the 40s. But I think he can honestly extend his career with the brain he's developed.
And I think the Chiefs owe it to him to add more talent around him to allow that to be the case, where Travis becomes more of a complementary piece as opposed to the focal premier piece. I know that he's that great still, but if you want to get as much as you can out of Travis Kelce going to the 35, 36, maybe even 37 years old, we've seen tight ends like Jason Witten and Shannon Sharp play into their mid to late 30s at a high level, Antonio Gates as well. If you want to get that, though, like those guys, those offenses added pieces to where, okay, this is the number one guy. The second and third progressions can be Travis Kelce. That's what I want to start seeing happen.
Talk about a guy that can become a coach. I think that's one of those guys that can become a coach in this league at the end of his career. I definitely think that's one of he's gotten so wise, man, and he is the sole reason for changing the tight end position.
So far, so I put on there which streak comes to an end first. Actually, 67% of the votes so far are saying AFC Championship appearances.
You know why?
That's interesting.
Because the AFC is so much more competitive
especially
now.
this next season.
Yeah.
Outside of one bad half, the Chiefs still own the AFC.
It's confirmation bias.
That's what's so funny about this.
It's confirmation bias because the Chiefs lost.
If the Chiefs would have lost to the Bills in the divisional round, this is an actual conversation.
Yeah,
because the Chiefs had one bad half and had to lose in overtime to a field goal in order to lose the AFC Championship, to me tells me they're still very much, and I guarantee they'll still be the favorites to win the Super Bowl next year.
I guess the Patriots did go to 9 straight AFC championships?
9 straight AFC championships.
So, the possibility is there.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I have a stat for you guys I want to throw there before we get to our final segment. So, Tom Brady has played in 9 more AFC Championship games than Patrick Mahomes has to this point of his career, yet only has 7 more touchdowns in AFC Championship games than Patrick Mahomes. Crazy. So he's played in 9 more AFC Championship games than Patrick Mahomes, but only has 7 more touchdown passes in AFC Championship games.
Empty games in there without a
Patrick
touchdown.
Mahomes has never had an AFC Championship game where he didn't have 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Every single AFC Championship he's played in, he's had at least 3 touchdowns.
We all know he's going to reset this point.
So I'm trying to liven you guys up here because trust me when I say I'm still down and out. I'm going to be down and out all offseason. This is going to be the longest offseason I've had as a Chiefs fan because of the fact that unlike other seasons when we kind of knew, okay, it's Alex Smith, there's a ceiling. There's, Elvis Gerbach, Trick Green, Rich Gannon, all these other guys that you can accumulate. They always had ceilings, so we knew they weren't going to win Super Bowls unless everything fell their way. This is different. This one hurts different. But I with the same breath, because of the fact that it's different, I believe that things are going to change and Chiefs will get back to where they belong.
I tell you, I cannot wait till Patrick Mahomes goes on his first road playoff game.
May never happen.
I cannot wait for that.
It may never happen. He's got 11 playoff games so far, and he's yet to play a road playoff game. Just saying, Eddie. Just saying.
I get it, but I mean,
I want to see that so bad.
It'll probably happen. I'm just saying
so it could end a lot.
How
of
funny would it be
narratives.
if Patrick Mahomes gets into his 30s and he's yet to play a road playoff game? He's in playoff game 22 and he's 31 years old. He's still never played.
And his records only shows home.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. It's crazy to think about that.
That'd be crazy. But yeah, sadly, I do think two of them can become true at the same time, especially with the AFC and how it's
we got a long off season. We got a long off season to discuss these things, and we're not stopping. I know people are probably worried. Are they going to do a show, guys? We're 24/7. We are every week. We do this all throughout the year.
Not
we don't have
24/7.
You know what I mean, though. We're here.
Well, Lance is 24/7. This shit never.
Yeah,
stops,
I never shut the hell up over here, but
we're 3 and 1, 3 hours in one day. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna keep going, guys, because I know the off season it's rough, but we gotta keep the conversation going, man, because there's a lot that's gonna happen this off season, in particular with the Chiefs. And I wore a shirt that my brother Trevor got me for an early birthday present. It says, I don't know if you can read it all, but in Beach We Trust. Absolutely. I'm in that boat. I think this man deserves all the credit in the world for what he did this last offseason. Even McCole Hardman, a guy that was a questionable draft pick, just had himself a career year, and every single year McCole Hardman's receiving numbers have gone up. I think this was by far his best season. So at worst, some of the worst decisions that Brett Veach has made either were 4+ years ago, or McCole Hardman was one of the worst decisions he made, and McCole Hardman has proven himself to now be a legitimate weapon, not a wide receiver too, but a legitimate weapon in this offense that I think the Chiefs can trust and build upon. And I love what I've seen from Brett Veach's.
Context matters why he was taken.
Yeah, exactly. And now you're seeing Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and Orlando Brown Jr. and Joe Tooney, Melvin Ingram. The list goes on. Tyreek Hill's going to get his extension. I don't know what's going to happen with Tyron Matthew. We're going to talk about this, guys, as the week progresses. Yeah. I think we'll have a better idea of what's going to happen with Tyron Matthew in the next couple of weeks. I know Tyron Matthew wants to be here, but it's going to really have to come down to, do the Chiefs want to spend that money on a player who's going to be 30 years old next season at his position? I know that most teams draft to get a guy like Tyron Matthew, who's not really, he's a positionless player. He's known as a safety, but he plays as a pass rusher. He plays as a linebacker. He plays as a corner, slot corner, maybe even the best slot corner in the league, and that's not even his natural position. So I would like, for the record, I would like to see the Chiefs retain Tyron Matthew, but if they don't, I understand why, because as I've been saying all show long, this is time for the Chiefs to go and get younger, cheaper, better players, and if they don't feel that Tyron Matthew fits that criteria and meets that criteria, moving on from him is the best decision to make, but I welcome him back with open arms, because this man is all about football. He loves this team, and I think he would continue to contribute to this defense and getting better and helping Patrick Mahomes win more Super Bowls, which is the ultimate goal here. We have one more order of business to get to, guys. What is it called? Hold this L. Each and every week we finish off a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether we give out friendly or not so friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, who is ever holding those L's in the world of sports, those motherfuckers deserve it. Mr. Yo-Yo-Yo Eddie Ortiz, who is the holding the L for you, and is it F1?
No, it's Brian Kelly and LSU.
Thank you.
It was.
Thank you.
This was just like a fucking sitting on the platter, you know. I thought he was an actual player when Brian Kelly did the video, the whole, pump up video of being in the back of Danny Lewis. I thought that player was an LSU player, just for simple, like he's wearing the uniform. Brian Kelly's in the back pumping him up, and yeah. So next, I'm scrolling through Twitter, and then I see Danny Lewis, the recruit, and I was like, oh, recruit, okay. Who Brian Kelly danced behind and helped get over 8 million views in that video, it was a good video. I mean, it pumps you up. Yep. You're like, oh shit. He's picking Alabama over LSU.
Got that clout.
He got what he wanted from Brian Kelly, the attention of Alabama. I think that's what he was doing. And Alabama did everything in their power to be like, hey, just come our way and win titles. So
yeah, man.
This one's a tough one for LSU as a whole to swallow. To lose a recruit like that to your nemesis, pretty much, to Alabama, the school you want to beat every year.
The school.
Yeah, the school, and then you say you're better than them and blah 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 yada yada. Then again, they don't do anything like this, and they just take your player.
Yeah.
They literally didn't shoot like a video like this. Did you guys see an Alabama video like this?
No, but I just know that Brian Kelly was literally holding up an L. It was like he was predicting it. It was so fucking cringy too, man.
He was predicting our show, giving him the L. 'Cause
I mean,
fucking, it gets so cringe.
It was cringy.
Now that I see the videos, like all cringe, because now I know that he's going to Alabama. It's kind of like,
yeah, and the way they were like nightclub dancing too,
like,
almost like they were like bumping and grinding in the video. Like,
it was. Like I said, it was cool at the moment, but then after when I read that, I was like, ooh, like, god damn. So LSU, Brian Kelly, you're gonna have to do me a favor and
hold this L. Trevor Twidwell, who's holding the L for you today, man.
So we did touch on the Tom Brady thing, and I don't know what the deal is, man. I don't know why the salt is so real, but Patriots fans, the salt was real this past couple days. Portnoy from Barstool, Patriots Twitter, New England Twitter. I mean, we can go broader and broader. The assault was real. I mean, when he announced he posted that Instagram post and didn't mention, it was more about Tampa and his time there and so on and so forth. And they're just completely forgetting the fact that when Tom Brady left New England, he had this extremely heartfelt whole entire diatribe about New England and about all those things and thanking everyone by name, Kraft, everyone. He's going down the whole totem pole of people.
He didn't say Belichick though in that final goodbye to the Patriots.
Sure.
He did this time, but yeah.
But it's been reported supposedly that Tom Brady is also going to sign a one day contract and go retire
as a Patriot.
After all that bitching and moaning about Tom didn't mention us and Tommy was fuck him, I'm fucking pissed.
Yeah, he's retired from the Bucks, but not from the Patriots.
It's like that's literally like in the moment he's retiring from football as a Buck. Like it was well written, well said. Everything was. I almost understand what they're trying to do, but it was so like in the moment, instant.
I guess
reaction.
A lot of people took saltiness to the post because the picture he posted of him doing something, it was him in Gillette Stadium in the Bucks uniform.
Yeah, it is.
So they
winning.
Winning.
That's intentional, 100%.
So they took offense to that, and I think that's what made him more salty.
This guy brought how many rings to this franchise?
Six.
So I mean, give a little leeway there. Immediately, everyone was jumping on their social medias and bashing Tom Brady. Imagine Patrick Mahomes winning 6 titles in Kansas City and we bash him because he went to another place. This is why I have a issue with the whole Tony G thing, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say, it reminds me of Tony Gonzalez.
But this is even bigger stage because Tony Gonzalez never won a ring here. First of all, he had his best years here. That's a whole other thing. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I'm always going to defend Tony G on that. But
Fuck it, bitch.
I'm not going down that road.
The salt, man, from these New England fans, it's just so unbelievable, bro. He literally made y'all relevant, right? Belichick's it wasn't even relevant really until Tom Brady started taking off and having that career. Granted, it was the duo of them two that created that greatness and that magic, but the quarterback is who he was, and he was one of the key cogs to the success that was in New England for that long, and then it showed when he went to Tampa, right? So. Yeah, I mean, Portnoy and just the outright slave of the moment people, it's embarrassing, man, honestly, to see that and sit there and look at these people that have had nothing but, success, the greatest success of any football franchise, and then you're going to immediately bitch about it. And then moments later, he's announcing he's going to go sign a one-day contract. And there's going to be some heartfelt footage. There's going to be some heartfelt messages that are spoken from him to Mr. Kraft. And I'm sure Belichick is going to get mentioned eventually. I know that the relationship got shattered.
He already posted a story and said, "Thank you, Belichick, the greatest coach ever."
Look, Kraft released a whole statement.
Yeah, man.
When he retired.
There's going to be a whole bunch of dude sweat going on. You know what I mean? So let's just stop with that bullshit. Everyone knows he's going to go, and his Man in the Arena documentary is going to be nothing but Patriots shit. That's what it's going to be, So y'all are going to get that. Just like it's so.
He's going into the Hall of Fame as a Patriot.
Right, man. He's gonna retire as a Patriot. Like, we all know this. Like, the fact that these people are just... Dude, he was getting slaughtered on Twitter.
Yeah, I'd seen that.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
The audacity that these fans have, these quote-unquote fans have, important with the platform that he has, after absolutely shitting on Brady. He's like, I'm fucking pissed and all this. Like, bro, fuck off. Yeah. Y'all won so many rings. Y'all have the most successful franchise in the league, and you're going to bitch right now in the moment? Like, it's so pathetic.
Portnoy needs to focus more on leaving women alone before he starts doing that.
Jesus Christ, we can go down that.
Shit.
Yeah, but the woe is me mentality from the most successful fan base, the fan base of the most successful franchise in NFL history. Eat a dick, dude. I'm sorry. That's so pathetic. So for that, New England fans, Portnoy especially, all these people that have platforms, Patriots Twitter, all of you do me a favor and
hold this L. That's a good one. That was a really good one. I actually want to start mine off with a W to one Kyle Long, because I remember this offseason people were speculating that Kyle Long was brought in here to Kansas City as a retired veteran to help with this offensive line, because we had no idea how this offensive line was going to play. The last experience we had with this offensive line was it was terrible in the Super Bowl when it mattered most, and they thought that Kyle Long was going to be that guy. Well, Kyle Long played exactly 0 snaps all season long for the Chiefs this year. I think he was only active for 1 game, if I'm not mistaken, and made $1.5 million. So congratulations, he was the Chase Daniel of offensive linemen this year. I'm actually happy for him. Not even like trying to be sarcastic. I'm like, that's a W. Imagine coming out of retirement to make $1.5 million to do absolutely nothing except catch COVID.
Collect that check.
So that was great. Yeah. So W to our guy Kyle Long. Thank you for absolutely nothing. But I'm happy for you. Your bank account got that much fatter. So I actually have 2 L's that I want to give out to this week, and one starts with the college game, because there was a coach that was trying really, really hard to act like he didn't want to come back to the pro level, only to go out and have a 9-hour interview with the Minnesota Vikings, that coach being named Jim Harbaugh. So he decided to go and have a 9-hour interview with the Minnesota Vikings. He thought he had it all locked up, and he was arrogantly, spouting at the mouth, saying that he was going to be, taking this job. It was his job and lying in wait. And they decide to take an unproven offensive coordinator by the name of McConnell from the Rams, who people call the taller Sean McVay, which sounds like that'd be a very promising coach for the Minnesota Vikings. But the saddest part about all this is that when Jim Harbaugh was told that they're not hiring him at Minnesota, he had to walk back to the Michigan Wolverines and say, I'll come back if you'll have me. The reason why this is so sad is not only he had to come back with his tail between his legs, but they also reduced his salary in half. He lost 50% of his salary from one season to the next, and that's why he was throwing a fit and wanting to get back to the NFL level. But the NFL has essentially blackballed Jim Harbaugh for whatever reason it is. Nobody is hiring him. And that door has been slammed shut, it seems, at this point. So Jim Harbaugh, man, I know you've done a decent job at Michigan. He hasn't done a terrible job. They had a really good season this year, even though they got the absolute brakes beat off of them in that bowl game this year. It's still so sad that his biggest loss wasn't even on the field. It was here, the Minnesota Vikings saying, yeah, we're good, swipe left. That's what happened to him, and now he has to go back to Michigan with all these questions in place and all these hurt feelings and all these egos now he's going to have to stroke just to get back into formation and focused for football for this next fall. Jim Harbaugh, do me a solid, brother, and hold this L. My other L is going to start with these key losses, and I want to ask you guys if you know who took these losses. In 2010, in the AFC divisional round, the Jets beat the Patriots 28-21 with Mark Sanchez as their quarterback. In 2005, the AFC wildcard, the Broncos beat the Patriots 27-13. I want to see if you guys know who the quarterback was. Oh, that's right. Jake Plummer was the quarterback for the Broncos in those games. In the 2009 AFC wildcard, the Ravens beat the Patriots 33-14. The quarterback was the name of Joe Flacco that won that game. In 2012, the AFC championship game, the Ravens blew the shit out of the Patriots on that one as well. Won 28-13. Again, Joe Flacco was the quarterback of that one. And then in 2019, the Titans beat the AFC wildcard, they beat the Patriots at home 20-13. The pick six was the end result of that game, and the quarterback was Ryan Tannehill, who we all just know threw 3 interceptions to the Bengals defense. So the quarterback in all those games on the other side of that was Tom Brady. Why am I bringing that up? Is because I've been hearing all this conversation now that Patrick Mahomes finally had a bad half in the playoffs, that now the GOAT conversation's out the window. But see, I just wanted to throw those ones out there because Tom Brady took the losses to those quarterbacks. Mark Sanchez, Joe Flacco twice, Jake Plummer beat him by 14 points in the AFC playoffs. I don't know if you guys remember, but the only quarterbacks that Patrick Mahomes has ever lost to in the playoffs is Tom Brady in overtime in his first playoff run, in the Super Bowl to Tom Brady, and to Joe Burrow, who everyone is claiming is the next White Knight. I didn't hear Jake Plummer, Mark Sanchez, or Joe Flacco. Oh, and I'm sorry, I almost forgot this part, guys. Tom Brady also lost 3 Super Bowls to Eli Manning and Nick Foles. Now, I had some people coming to me and saying, well, Lance, you can't make the comparisons because Tom Brady won with intelligence. He may not have had the stats like Patrick Mahomes, but it's intelligence. So what happened in all those games? Was Mark Sanchez, Joe Flacco, Jake Plummer, Nick Foles, and Eli Manning more intelligent than Tom Brady? If that's the case, why didn't all those guys win 6, 7 Super Bowls? That's weird how the narrative works, huh, guys? See, I know the truth. I know that folks are just scared because what Patrick Mahomes is doing is you can't equate it. It's unprecedented, and I'm still standing firm on it, even though I'm absolutely infuriated by how he played in that second half in the AFC Championship. My point, though, is Patrick Mahomes' lowlights are like LeBron James's, where he fails at the top, where people wish they could be there.
Facts.
That's what's funny to me. And again, to bring up LeBron James, I saw somebody compare Patrick Mahomes now to LeBron James, which I've already been doing, but now that's what's happening, is that his lowlights are going to be what everybody wants to hold up and say, see, he couldn't do it every time. It's an unfair and unrealistic standard that he is now held to. And that's okay with me, because only GOATs can be held to those said standards, because only GOATs are the ones can achieve said standards. Patrick Mahomes, guys like LeBron James are the only ones that can do that. And I just thought I would sprinkle some light into the equation, because everybody loves to talk about all the success that Tom Brady has, and we just gave him his props for what he did, because he was the most successful player of all time. But it's funny how we overlook the failures. It's funny how we overlook how he took several playoff losses to average at best and terrible mostly quarterbacks throughout his career. It's funny how we do that. So for everybody that wants to play that bullshit narrative and sit here and say the GOAT talk is over when, my God, it just began, do me a solid and hold this L. We appreciate y'all, man.
I just want to say it's funny how people can try to put an end to the GOAT conversation with Patrick Mahomes, but yet they also get mad at people that were trying to GOAT him. You know, people that are trying to glorify him and say what he could become and what the future holds for him. They're like, oh, you can't talk about it because his resume isn't done yet. But they automatically want to shut his resume down after he has a loss and finally has a bad game in the playoffs. It's just funny how that goes. Like, they literally do the exact same thing on the opposition. So
first 4 seasons, Tom Brady had 8 losses of double digits. Patrick Mahomes only had 3. Games with multiple interceptions, Tom Brady had 14. Patrick Mahomes only had 10. Games with a quarterback rating of less than 90, Tom Brady had 41. Patrick Mahomes only has 18. Games with less than 200 passing yards, Tom Brady had 24. Patrick Mahomes only has 6. Games with 0 passing touchdowns, Tom Brady had 18. Patrick Mahomes only had 7. Games with a completion percentage of less than 60, Tom Brady had 30. Patrick Mahomes only had 18. Games with yards per average of less than 7, Tom Brady had 39. Patrick only had 20. Games with a quarterback rating of 100 plus, Tom Brady had 26. Patrick Mahomes had 44. Games with 250 plus passing yards, Tom Brady had 23. Patrick Mahomes had 60. Games with 3 passing touchdowns or more, Tom Brady had 14. Patrick Mahomes had 35. Games with a completion percentage of over 65, Tom Brady had 29. Patrick Mahomes had 43. Fourth quarter comebacks, Tom Brady had 11. Tom Brady had 10. Patrick Mahomes had 11. And games leading their teams in passing and rushing yards at the same time, Tom Brady had 0. Patrick Mahomes has 10.
Jesus.
That's playoffs included, brothers and sisters. So I just wanted to finish it off because I wanted to give my Chiefs fans some hope, because there's plenty of it. I'm with you guys. It hurts. It sucks that we're going to have to sit here and think about that as the last memory of this Chiefs team. They deserve better. We deserve better. They should be playing in the Super Bowl, but they're not. They're not. So they're going to have to sit here, reconvene, retool this offseason, and we'll be here. And we'll be here throughout it all. We're going to have great guests, guys. We're going to have great draft people on the show. We're going to have former players like we always do. We're going to give you guys as much content as we possibly can this offseason, because trust me when I say it's going to be great for us as well, because it's going to be a long offseason. But we are going to get through it, and the Chiefs are going to be back, and I cannot wait until that time occurs. But until then, for Trevor Twidwell, for Eddie Ortiz, for the great Arrowhead Tom of Kingdom Says Podcast, go check my guys out. For the great Clay Windler that puts all this stuff together for us, I am Lance Twidwell. Episode 153 of the Spoken Podcast is done, finished, and finito. And until we are back for episode 154 next week, we out of this bitch.
See ya.